Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome, jerks. Another 6 p.m. show, almost right on the dot. We've had some wild shows here, some good nights lately. I think tomorrow night I may actually finally take a night off. Hopefully. Every time I say that, something happens and I have to do another show. We have a huge show tonight. This is great. I'm looking forward to this tonight. A lot of times we're streaming the Canton Select Board meetings on the Tuesday night. They're in person tonight. I'm not streaming it tonight. I got some great guests. We may cover some of that later in this, upcoming in this week. But I know Canton Community Television is going to be recording it, so you can also watch it there if you're really die hard into the select board meetings. Tonight we have Massachusetts State Auditor back on the show. Really excited to have her back. She's been on a number of times now and answer our questions about what's going on with the state house legislators refusing to allow the audit to happen of the legislature, like that people voted for 70 something percent. I think it was 71% record vote. Like you never see that. So many votes came in and they're not allowing it. And this is her ballot initiative. This is something that she cares about. She's been on the show a number of times. When she started out on on our show, she was a state senator. So sometimes I screw up and call her that still because I get it ingrained in my head. She is now the Massachusetts State Auditor. Very, very impressive. I'm really excited to have her back on the show. And yeah, and later on the show, like I said too, there's going to be a quick little interview with the state auditor. She's very busy right now, but she's given us a few minutes tonight. Gonna hopefully get some questions answered about this state audit that we want to see. And also after that at 6:30, I believe, attorney Mark Bederow is going to be back on the show tonight. That should get everyone excited for the Karen Reed coverage. We're going to do both tonight. So let's get state auditor Diana DiZoglio back in the show. Welcome back to the show, Diana.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me back. It's always great to be with the Young Jurks. Thank you.
Thank you. I love having you here. And so we definitely want to talk about this I always screw that word up. Legislature audit. That's a hard one to say.
That's
Uh,
hard. You just call
yeah,
it the general court, the state reps, the state senators, the place where everyone works up at the state house, our representative body here in Massachusetts.
that's right. The state court. I love that one. People really get confused about that one. They're like, "What? A court?" I thought it is called the state court too. Up at the state house. But I also wanted to mention this Michael Morrissey thing because there was something that came up on Twitter with a lot of our followers noticing it from a friend of our show who does these great videos. Microdots put a video out about Michael Morrissey and yourself and some other state electeds, the governor. You responded, which I thought was awesome, which none of the others did. And he ended up apologizing, which I love Richie from Microdots. Do you want to talk about that real quick? Because people were asking, like, what is your relationship to Michael Morrissey? He's a highly controversial person now, especially on this show with our followers, people watching tonight, because of what's going on with Karen Reed and some of the other ones, Sandra Birchmore. There's been quite a few scandals lately with him. Uh, what do you want to say about it?
Yeah, look, I am in photos with a lot of people. I was at the St. Patty's Day breakfast this past weekend with a lot of folks who do not support me, do not like me, let people know they don't like me. You know, you're up at the same podium, you're telling jokes, you're laughing, you're singing, you're speaking. It does not mean that you are, aligned politically. It does not mean that you support each other. So I had been at an event and apparently, the person you're talking about was at the microphone and handed me a microphone when I was at an event. And, I said thank you or something. I don't frankly, recall even what event it was at. I go out all the time on a daily basis, but there was a photo of me at this event getting a microphone. And I just thought it was important just to say, hey, just because I'm getting handed a microphone at an event doesn't mean that, that person is supporting the work that we're doing or partaking in it or even supporting me for that matter in anything that I'm doing. So I just thought it was important just to say, look, we're we're not politically aligned. And, you know, I'm happy to state that and to just clarify that. And so I did that. And Richie Microdots was incredibly responsive, which I appreciated because normally I'll say stuff like that and people will just ignore it and just keep putting the material out there. And, you know, it was, you know, something that I thought was just it really demonstrated his human side, you know, where it was like, oh, you know, thank you for responding and thanks for clarifying that. And I said, no, yeah, no worries. Like I'm here. I live in Methuen and I'm, you know, I'm happy to chat with people about what I think and don't think about different things. But, you know, just FYI, this is the reality of the situation. And he was very responsive and he did do a retraction. And I really thought that, you know, demonstrated a level of integrity that I don't see very often these days, especially in our political environment. And, you know, we can agree, we can disagree. I am a Democrat. I'm friendly with, you know, Republicans who disagree with me often on different things, but we have respectful conversations. And, you know, it's important that, you know, we are able to be clear on what our intentions are, what our, you know, initiatives really mean, and that we can have those conversations, even if you're disagreeing about something, right? So I just thought that was a great example of, you know, people communicating and just being real, communicating and saying, you know, publicly, hey, this is what's going on. Thank you so much. Okay, great. Have a great day. And now we're looking forward to connecting at some point. Can't wait to meet him. So we're looking forward to connecting and chatting about, you know, whatever there is to chat about in government. So there you go. You can move forward past tough and challenging conversations and actually, you know, even potentially become friendly with people whom, you know, you originally maybe thought that would never happen with.
Absolutely. I when I saw the interaction, I was so like I was like they're like I like you both, and so when I saw you both like going back and forth, and it turned out that way, it like made me smile. I was so happy. I was like, thank God they're such because you both are good people. Like, and it showed through. Like even from like outsiders like myself watching it, it was great to see. So I gotta give Microdots is getting some love in the chat. Richie Microdots is the man. And Diana DiZoglio is the auditor and the people's auditor, which I'm excited about. So let's talk about this what's going on at the State House, at the People's Court, or whatever we call it.
Yeah. So essentially, look, y'all, I just want to say thank you so much for continuing to support. I admittedly am really tired, and I am continually energized by all of you helping to support and giving the shout outs and encouraging me, encouraging my office to keep up the good fight here. But, you know, admittedly tired with this because it's been years now, you know, so I would say, you know, please just keep calling the Attorney General and asking her to permit us to go to court. It's clear she doesn't want to represent our office. It's clear she does not want to represent the people of Massachusetts in this case. We have a case. We have a disagreement. There is no need for my office at all, frankly, to provide the Attorney General with any additional information. The Attorney General has the authority to sue folks for not being in compliance with the law without permission from me, the auditor, without permission from you, Mike Crawford, or any of the people that are watching here today. It is the power of the Attorney General's office to sue you know, entities who violate the law. But what's happening right now is our Attorney General is essentially shifting the blame for her office's inaction and decision not to take action onto the Office of State Auditor and saying, well, we're not going to take action because we just want the Office of State Auditor to keep getting us more and more information. And every week, we're going to keep asking them, or that's not every week, but, you know, every so often, we're going to keep asking them for more information and saying that we need more, we don't have enough, and, you know, we can't build a case yet. And that's just simply inaccurate. And attorneys will tell you, I've spoken to many attorneys who understand that process. I'm not an attorney. So to put the responsibility of suing the legislature into compliance with the law onto an office that's run by a non-attorney who is going to the Attorney General's office, asking them to fulfill their duty and their obligation to enforce the law, it is really disheartening and it is really disappointing. And unfortunately, what's happening right now is that, we are being faced with the pushback from the Attorney General's office on this front, and don't really have a different path forward, officially speaking, because our office is actually required by law to go through the Attorney General's office in order to pursue litigation. We have a right to take people to court, but the Attorney General's office is the attorney of record. So if the Attorney General decides to just keep stalling and keep blaming our office and saying, oh, well, I still need more information, with all due respect, you do not need any more information than looking at the fact that this was a 72% voter mandated law that was just passed. And it is the law, and it is being blatantly violated right now. And we repeatedly hear legislative leaders say that they are unwilling to cooperate. And they do, by the way, Mike, have the ability to go to the SJC, the Supreme Judicial Court, and they can get a ruling, an opinion from the SJC on whether or not there are any constitutional issues with this. Do you know why they won't go? It's quite obvious. They won't go because they don't want to hear what the courts have to say. They want to control the narrative. They want to keep this under their purview. So what they're doing is they are in the Attorney General's office blocking me, obstructing my access to court, just like they did the last time, through different means this time. But they are, through continually waiting and dragging this on and dragging this out, obstructing my access to court and my office's access to court. And simultaneously, the legislature is, though they have the authority to ask for an SJC opinion, while I'm required to go through the AG's office, the legislature has the authority to go to the SJC directly. They are not. They are saying that, the speaker said recently, essentially, that, well, he already has an opinion. Why would he ask for the opinion of the SJC? And he thinks it's unconstitutional, so he's just not going to follow the law. He's not going to ask the courts to weigh in. He's going to decide what the law says and what the law doesn't say about a law that directly impacts his work. So what is happening is absolutely unacceptable. It is a system that is demonstrative of the broken system of our state government right now when it comes to transparency and accountability at the most basic level. We talk about all these reforms in state government that need to take place, and we work on having these conversations, and that's all well and good, but we can't even get financial receipts from our legislators right now. Financial documents, state contracts, procurement documents that in most other state entities like mine are matters of public record. If you call my office and you say you want a receipt for something, we are required to provide that document to you and allow folks to review that. We save the receipts. You have to do that in offices like ours. And that is something that most state entities do. That's something that municipalities are required to do. But yet our state legislature exempts themselves from the public records law. They hold themselves above the audit law that you just voted for. And then they tell you that's what you get. Thanks so much for coming. Thanks for trying to change the law and exercising your right to vote. But we're going to ignore it is essentially what they're saying. So this is why, Mike, you're seeing Democrats and Republicans unite to take on this issue, because this is the least partisan issue that is this high profile, at least in Massachusetts. And we saw Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives coming together, folks who barely speak to each other otherwise, folks who battle each other in the press otherwise, coming together and uniting to take on this corrupted power structure on Beacon Hill. There are a lot of collusive conversations going on behind the scenes with people trying to navigate what everybody's going to do, how this is going to be handled. I hear about them often. I have people coming to me and telling me about the hearsay about how, what the next thing is going to be that they're, having these exclusive conversations to do. And it's unacceptable, but that is what's going on. And I am working with private, residents right now, individual residents in the Commonwealth right now to look towards other legal avenues to get this in front of a court. But I have to tell you, it's been challenging because we are not financially resourced to be able to do this, right? So we have people coming forward and saying they'll volunteer, they're willing to help, but then they're trying to help build up a case for a mandamus, for example, a writ of mandamus, to require the AG to do her job and require the legislature to follow the law. We've been talking to folks about getting 10 taxpayers together and going that route. But again, it takes a lot of legal writing and a lot of work. So the challenge has been getting all those folks on the same page. And obviously I have work to do in my office. So
as an
I don't
auditor,
have time to do that on the side and learn how to be, a lawyer myself. So really, we have folks that really, really, really want to be helpful, but we are having a challenging time, and it's going to eventually happen, but it's going a lot more slowly because of all of the roadblocks that are happening. We'll try to go this route and there'll be a roadblock put up. We'll try to go the other route and there'll be a roadblock put up. So, we definitely need folks to just keep the pressure on your elected officials. They are absolutely upset, frustrated with me right now because of this continued push. They do not appreciate me taking to social media, coming on podcasts like this and telling people, but with all due respect, this is what advocacy looks like, and if they're not going to follow the law and then they're not going to follow the law, and then they're essentially asking me to be quiet about it. So they're saying, we're not going to follow the law. And if you talk about it to people, then we're going to shame and blame you for telling people on social media about it or coming on podcasts and talking about it. And, I have a constitutional right to speak. I am a resident, tax-paying resident of this Commonwealth as well. And just because I happen to be elected as the auditor does not mean that I am not allowed to speak, that I'm not allowed to say what's happening, that I'm not allowed to voice my opinion. Absolutely, it's my constitutional right, like it's yours, to tell people what's going on, to be an advocate, to raise awareness. And I always joke, and to do it loudly as the Italian-American woman that I am. And I will wave my hands around while I'm doing it sometimes. So, it's been challenging, but we are continuing to push and really do need your continued support. And I know folks are getting impatient with this. They're getting very frustrated. Trust me, I feel your pain. We are doing everything we can. Again, if I was an attorney myself, I didn't run for attorney general. I ran for auditor because this is what I want to do. And if I was an attorney, maybe things would be a little bit different. But I am seeking some assistance with the legalities of all of these things and with the kind of nuanced issues that are taking place that are able to obstruct us at every turn. And we will get this done. It's not if, it's just when. So it is taking a while longer, but please don't grow weary in well-doing, so to speak. Keep advocating, keep talking about this, get louder, because they're not listening. There was a poll the other day, Mike, that came out that said, I don't know, it was like 81% or something like that of folks want the Attorney General to enforce the law. And they did this poll, folks weighed in. That is a significant leap up from even the ballot question, where we won the ballot question 1 to audit the legislature with 72% of the vote. This was around, I think it was 81, 82%. So that's almost a 10-point jump on folks coming on board and saying, hey, even if they didn't vote for it, when asked if they think that because it's law, it should be enforced now by the Attorney General, they said yes. So that tells us that even folks who didn't necessarily vote for this potentially are now saying, you know, even though I didn't, I still understand that it's law now and the Attorney General should enforce it. So keep making those phone calls. That's what we need. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity to come on and to give you an update.
So I hope people contact AG Andrea Campbell about this and your state reps. Mike Conley, State Rep Conley, he had posted something about this. He was, I think you guys might have been friendly too. Like I have a feeling, but he was pushing back and comparing you. I think that's part of the pushback that you talk about from the State House. Because, you know, Mike's a good guy, but he was pushing back to you about that this is like Trump, like he was saying. Wasn't he comparing you to Trump in a way? Or did he even say that? Did he use the word Trump? It seemed like it.
Yeah, Mike, he's not even insulting me. I have very thick skin at this point. I've been doing this for a long time. I was a state rep for 6 years and I served with Mike. I was a senator for 4 years and served with, you know, Mike and all the other legislators, right? So I spent 10 years in the legislature as an elected official. And what I will tell you is this, that is not insulting to me. I'm not insulted by it. You know who it's insulting? It's insulting you, the voters who voted for this, because what it does, alongside what Senator Spilka keeps trying to say, is it says that if they just mention the word Trump, that what they're thinking, it seems like, is that everybody's going to all of a sudden go, oh no, well now it must be something bad, and they just have to say that, and then everybody's going to forget that they did their research, did their homework, understood what they were voting for, and, you know, made a decision as an informed resident of this Commonwealth. And I just think it's incredibly insulting to the voters who went out and had the information in that red book, watched, you know, some of the debates on this issue, you know, listened to all the radio interviews, really followed this when they made their decision, having heard all of the, you know, stuff that was being thrown at the wall to see what stuck. They made their decision. And now what's happening is the very people that are voting against the law, respectfully to Representative Connolly, who I have been friendly with, and I, you know, will continue to be friendly with, you know, in a professional capacity. We all work together at the State House. We have a very strong disagreement with this. I do not believe that Representative Connolly should have voted against following this law. You know, if it was a disagreement with me personally, okay, maybe there could be some sort of a conversation about that. But this was an issue that was voted on by every single town and city in this Commonwealth and passed in all 351 cities and towns. And it passed statewide again by that 72% margin. It is a mandate, and it is something that impacts these reps and senators directly, because it is their legislative body that is required to be audited. So I get it. You know, reps wanted to excuse their vote, so they came out with these statements about, oh, well, they think the Constitution's an issue or whatever else. But, you know, how insulting to the voters, especially the Democratic voters, because we know Representative Connolly, you know, wants to keep his progressive street cred going, okay, respectfully. So, you know, it's not surprising that someone who wants to still say that, well, no, they're really progressive, but they're going to vote against the voter mandated transparency initiative that their constituency just voted for, that they would try to tie it to Trump, to try to pander to some of the progressives in their district, to kind of try to paint it as something Trumpian. Friends, the Democratic State Committee endorsed this. Progressive Mass, who did not endorse me in my race as a candidate, Progressive Mass endorsed this. Our Revolution Mass, who also did not endorse me in my race, our Revolution, they endorsed this, okay? We have Act On Mass, a very progressive left-leaning group who endorsed this. The list goes on.
All the places Mike hangs out at.
Yes, and yes, the Republicans also endorsed it because it's a nonpartisan issue. But what is happening at the State House right now is people are trying to make this a partisan issue and capitalize on the fact that we live in Massachusetts. Trump is not popular here. I did not vote for Trump, and I think it's important to be transparent and say that. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to work together with my Republican colleagues on a transparency initiative like this, and that we're not going to work across party lines for the things that we agree are right for our communities. As professionals, as electeds, we are called to do that work as statesmen and stateswomen. So shame on anyone who tries to tie a basic transparency and accountability measure that their residents voted for to any political candidate for the purposes of trying to manipulate their own electorate into thinking that this is something that is against their values. It is really disappointing, and it is, those types of tactics have no place in our state government. And speaking of transparency, it's very transparent what that was. And when you have somebody voting against, something that impacts them directly to protect their own membership, of course you're going to see the excuses come out. But those types of excuses really are just beyond what is acceptable. If somebody wants to, say the constitutional thing, I kind of just look back and say, okay, let's have the conversation in court then. I'm happy to have the conversation about the constitutionality, even though I feel like it's a, nothing but an excuse, because it is something that folks might want to see decided by a court. I've said, great, then let's go before the judge. Let's go before a judge and let's get this issue decided. But that's not what this is about. This is about shaming and blaming, politicizing this, and trying to essentially say that if they don't like me, that they shouldn't have to follow the law. That's the other issue. Well, we don't like her, so because we don't like her, we don't have to follow the law. That's an excuse. Do you get to speed down the highway because you don't like the state auditor, Mike Crawford? Do you get to just go 120 miles an hour down the highway and tell the cop that pulls you over that you think the state auditor is too loud and she's making too much noise, so now you get to break the law? Certainly not, right? So their arguments are ridiculous and insulting to the voters, and they need to get with the program, and they still haven't gotten the memo. So apparently we have to keep being louder and being louder and being louder. And yeah, you're going to hear them yelling back and saying, she's too loud, she needs to get off social media, she needs to be quiet. But I'm not going to be quiet. And I'm shocked that they haven't learned this after the last 12 years of serving with me. It's first they tried to silence me with an NDA. And what happened? I ended up running for office and getting elected a little over a year later, right? And since then, I've been incredibly loud up on Beacon Hill. And, still 12 years later, even as a constitutional officer, what are their tactics? Trying to silence, anyone who raises awareness about what is really going on Beacon Hill. And it's unacceptable. So don't be quiet, be louder, get louder, and be bold and keep beating the drum, because eventually they have to listen. It might take a while, but again, it's not a matter of if, it's just a question of when.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. I know you got a tight schedule and you got to get going, but I really thank you for being here tonight. I almost said it senator, but it's state auditor now. State auditor
Senator
Diana DiZoglio.
Title.
Thank you for being here tonight.
They say auditor when I walk in the room, and everybody kind of looks and they start running away. And I'm like, no, I don't audit you. Come back. So
yes.
You can call me senator anytime. Diana is actually the easiest.
Yes, I love Diana too. So Diana, thank you so much. We're going to encourage everyone to contact the Attorney General and the state reps, state senators, and have you back again so we can get into it a little more. I really appreciate you being here again tonight.
Thanks so much, Mike. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye now. That was State Auditor Diana DiZoglio. We have Bederow in the green room. We're going to bring him up right now. I just want to let everyone know, pinned in the chat right now, you have Diana DiZoglio's contact on Twitter and X. You can follow her there. Definitely do so. I want to thank her so much for being here tonight. Contact your AG if you care about this. Everyone voted for it. 72% wanted a state audit. of the state house, of the legislature, and now they're blocking it. The attorney general's not enforcing the law. They just did a poll, 80-something% want it enforced, what we voted for. So let's see if we can help out on that. Let's get attorney Mark Bederow back on the show to talk about the Karen Reed hearings today. Attorney Bederow, can you hear us? Hello.
I can hear you. How are you?
Good. How you doing tonight?
Okay.
I'm loving that you're back. You got the Celtics on tonight.
Well, yeah, law averages. It's going to kick in at some point.
It went back to the norm, the medium. Yeah.
Back to the meat and potatoes, right? Back to the standard.
Meat and potatoes. There we go. So today it got a little wild today in court. There was this whole there was a sanction. They're talking about sanctions today. The judge, what did you think about this when she called Karen Reed over? It got dramatic. What did you think about this whole thing with the judge today?
Well, I saw it late. I had my own court today, so I didn't see it live. But I certainly saw a lot of people complaining online when I was just scrolling through, sitting in a courtroom waiting for my case. I did watch it a couple of hours ago, and it's bad. I mean, I think it's a terrible look. The optics are bad, and it's getting harder and harder to not sense bias. I mean, if you're going to call balls and strikes like it is, which is what I'm going to do, I don't get it. I mean, it just looked terrible. These lawyers have been reprimanded repeatedly. They've been chastised, called up to take blood oaths, and this ARCA thing is such a nothing burger. I mean, it's a real, to the extent there was any discovery violation, it was ticky-tack. I don't think there's any credible evidence that anything was deliberate. I mean, why would they do that? Why would they deliberately lie to the court? That doesn't make any sense. Why, in terms of the sidebar, I mean, any lawyer can tell you what that was all about. That was to talk to the client and see whether you want those lawyers to continue, because, she has the power to take very serious measures, including, if you want new lawyers, I will arrange for that. Obviously, she doesn't want new lawyers. That would never happen. So the sanctions, what are they going to be? Probably nothing during the trial. Does she call the grievance committee after the trial? I don't think anything would ever happen. The idea that this was deliberate, again, it gets out there, it gets public, people see it. It's 2 weeks before a trial date. It's really regrettable, and you can't help but ignore, if this is so offensive, what about the fact that evidence has not been disclosed, on time to the defense? I mean, the video, obviously, I mean, that evidence was disclosed late before the trial. It was disclosed during trial, and it continues to be disclosed after trial. One might expect that would be offensive to a court. And, there is still a motion to dismiss pending, but I mean, I don't think anybody at this point thinks that it's going to be granted. I mean, just, you have to read the room. It doesn't look like it. The prosecutor in this case continues to make statements which are not accurate. And, if we're going to talk candor to the court and all of that, again, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. And you're not seeing that. So it's getting harder and harder not to perceive what looks to be, if not bias, unfair treatment. I don't understand it.
Be done about that, because we're all watching it and just losing it. We're losing it because, like you said, there's that double standard. He can get up there and lie all he wants, just misstatement after misstatement after misstatement, no repercussions. And then it seems manufactured to me, this whole thing. Like you said, there is no, what were they getting over on the court? There was nothing the defense was getting out of that. It's like
Problem.
about the retrial. There was not, you know what I mean? It's just, it seems like such a manufactured thing versus what we're seeing Brennan do.
Well, I mean, he is making inaccurate statements, and whether they're deliberate or not, I mean, maybe one or two, but when you get to 9, 10, and 15, you start to wonder. But the other things are just not following procedural rules. Again, I mean, we probably beat this to death, but you see it again and again. And even today, I think it was brought out during one of the more technical motions that, they claim that this evidence is reliable. Why? Because the prosecutor says so. Again, another pinky promise. I swear to God, take my word for it. It's not how this works. And you do need affirmations. You do need written motions supported by, affidavits. We've been over that, right? No affirmations in Massachusetts, God forbid. But they're not doing that, and that doesn't appear to be a problem. And what appears to be the problem is the judge's belief that the current lawyers for Karen Reed are somehow unethical. And I think that's just absurd on its face. And if you know these people, I mean, obviously, I know them, you know them, people watch them, other lawyers know them. It's absurd to believe that they are anything but good, ethical, zealous advocates, and very skilled ones at that. But it just keeps happening, and it's very unfortunate.
Nothing they could do about it. I mean, there's nothing that.
No, there's nothing. I mean, what are you going to do? You can pack up your bag and go home? No, they're going to defend the client. They're going to take the hits. They're going to keep going, stay focused, and win. I mean, that's what lawyers do. And if you look at the grace with which they take this, by the way, okay? I mean, if you look at their demeanor in the courtroom, maybe versus the demeanor of the prosecutor in the courtroom, 99% of the time you would flip it and you would say it's usually the prosecutor who would be the more measured, more calm one. And stereotypically, you would say the defense attorney is the one who is kind of bada beep, bada boop, and, screaming and yelling and using all the histrionics and whatnot. I mean, I thought the histrionics today was silly. And I mean, it was pointless. I mean, the issue they were talking about was argued by the defense very matter-of-factly, very soberly, very ethically, and it morphed into a response of a hissy fit over nothing. And it was silly. I mean, it was just there. And I mean, good for them calling it out and saying, let's just, hose yourself down and let's, calm down. There used to be an expression I heard a lawyer said when the prosecutor is done swinging around the chandelier and wants to come back into the courtroom, let's get down to business. And that's what it felt like today. I mean, that was absurd.
Reminds me of one of those movies. I'm trying to think of that movie where they were having like parties at the morgue or whatever. Remember that movie?
Night Shift.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think that was young. That was young
yeah.
Tom Hanks, I think.
That was young Tom Hanks. That was.
I don't like Tom, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew you'd know that movie. I just knew it. I just had a feeling. That was a big movie back in the day.
Yeah. No, I know a lot about Tom Hanks's movies, but I don't like him. But anyway.
All right. Is there any reason why? Is it anything to do with it?
No.
There's a lot of conspiracy theories about him. I don't know.
No, nothing. Right
nothing major. All right. We're gonna light them up on all the people are going crazy. There was a post today. They were trying to tie you to some stuff. Did you see that one, the Como one? I was like, I don't know if you're gonna like that post.
What's
Did
that?
you see the John Como post? No? Dixie Normus on Twitter? We'll have to show you that one later. You get a lot of tweets about you. Yeah, it's funny.
I see some of them, obviously, but I mean, today was not a heavy.
You were working too. Yeah, you were working today too, right, man?
Believe it or not, I actually do work. I know that's hard to believe for a lot of people, but I do have a job and do have bills to pay.
Not only that, it's so funny to say, like, Kevin said you were a failed lawyer or whatever. And today you had two cases going at the same time. I mean, you couldn't be with Aiden in Dedham today, or actually he was in Stoughton,
He was
excuse
in
me,
Stoughton, yeah.
because you had another case that you were doing in Manhattan. So I
Mhm.
mean,
I mean, that's
you're obviously successful.
I like to think so, but you know, failed lawyer, failed bartender, what's the difference?
I love what I post because I've looked up, some of your big cases, and it's so easy. Like when he says shit like that, just to throw up, like when defended the FBI agent, or there's another friend of ours from Mexico City. He keeps posting the duck sauce killer's wife one that you won recently. Like it's just
Mhm.
funny. Like it's just like these guys don't even like do like 5 seconds of research. It's
Whatever. I mean, again, who cares? He's just, you know,
it's fun.
blustering buffoon. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah, they're insane. They're insanely jealous. That's what it usually comes down to too.
Yeah, I
Someone
mean,
said,
whatever. I don't even think he's worth the oxygen at this point, but
yeah, that's true. True. I really talk. I mean, I yelled at a caller the other day, like a week or two ago, because they tried to bring him up, and I said, "We don't talk about him anymore." Here I am. Can SJC judge overtake Bev like in YSL murder?
no, I mean, no, she's the chief judge in the county. She's about to try the biggest case in God knows how many years in that county. Just because people see what they believe to be some perception of bias, which is not that uncommon, by the way. I mean, this case is on TV every time, so you see it. But I wouldn't assume that literally people who do watch a trial say, wow, that judge appears to be favoring one side, or it doesn't appear to like this one as much as that one. That's not in and of itself unusual. I think the calling to the carpet of this legal team is unusual, especially since it doesn't appear to be any basis in fact to do so. So I think that's really regrettable, because I mean, these are really fine lawyers, and they're really fine people too, if you know them. And I think it's a shame, and to smear their reputation nationally like that is regrettable, and you know that can impact someone after. And to find that it was deliberate. I mean, you need to understand what she's saying. She's saying that you deliberately withheld evidence that you knew that you were obligated to disclose to the other side, and then you lied about it. That's what she's saying. And based on what? I don't get it.
Slight correction on the Night Shift movie. It wasn't actually Tom Hanks. It was Henry Winkler, Fonzie, with I think Michael Keaton. Actually, I think it was Ron Howard directed movie.
Michael Keaton. No, Tom Hanks was the.
Maybe he was in it though.
I don't know.
Let me see.
Usually with movies I'm good, but I mean that's like 1980.
That's a long time. Yeah, 1982.
82. That was next on my list.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. You know what? You get point just for remembering the name of it. I couldn't remember the name of it.
Well, The Morgue. I remember partying at the Morgue, which sounds like an early 80s Michael Keaton kind of thing, by the way.
Yeah. That's funny. So sanctions. Since she I feel like Bev is going to do something to Alan Jackson at the end of this, and but
it won't have anything.
Angry.
It won't have anything to do with Karen Reed. So it's not going to affect this trial. There's nothing to do. What she could do theoretically is make a referral to in New York, what we call a disciplinary committee, or the grievance committee. In Massachusetts, what they call the bar overseers, board of bar overseers. She could send something to California. And then when the California authorities look at it and see what the complaint is, they're going to do this. They're going to get it and do that. I mean, there's no reason here to sanction him. There's not. And I think, again, you can't say it enough times. It's very regrettable to publicly pull them all out on the carpet like that, because people run with that and reporters run with that. Nobody cares what the trolls do with it, obviously. But I mean, serious people could think, well, wait a minute, she's got these really unethical attorneys. And I mean, again, if you know how experts work, and if they paid the expert after the trial and there was never any discussion of money before the trial, at the time of the trial, there was nothing to disclose. There would be nothing to even cross-examine them about an expectation of payment. And then you also have to bear in mind, again, if you're a real lawyer and you do this for a living and you know how experts work, if the ARCA witnesses came from the feds, which indisputably they did, right? I mean, there's no question. They rendered an opinion before they even knew who the defense attorneys were or really knew anything about what they were doing other than, these are the facts, tell us what you think. They had no incentive to favor one side or the other, right? No reason. And if, for whatever reason, the feds said, you're going to have to take care of their legal fees, not legal fees, their expenses, their travel expenses, you're going to have to do that, then you would do it and you would disclose it. And if any prosecutor who is cross-examining the ARCA witnesses and suggesting because they got their travel reimbursed by the defense, which is normal, and that somehow is indicia of bias or motive to falsify a report that was in existence before they ever met, you need your head checked. So that's the other thing, okay? You watch at the second trial and you see whether Brennan actually wastes 5 minutes of his life cross-examining either of the ARCA guys about the free travel they got. That's pathetic. These are real experts. It doesn't matter. I saw they put even a footnote in the motion. Oh my God, they attended a luncheon or something because he's in the background. Well, the guy's testifying. You're eating across the street. He's your witness. Even a crash daddy or whatever they call them needs to eat. And so he's eating a sandwich, whatever, at your camp across the street. Are we seriously suggesting that is somehow dastardly or nefarious? Apparently, yes, by the way, because it was included in a motion. This is silly, Mike. All of this is silly and playing up to alleging that they're doing something wrong, and she's biting it hook, line, and sink.
She would be an easy mark, I feel like if you were a scammer or something, or maybe a wrestler, like pro wrestling, how they try to dupe the fans into believing it's real. Like that's where the word mark comes up a lot. Not you, Mark, but like in wrestling.
I know. But look, yeah. But I think you can't lose sight of the fact that with all the histrionics and all the, oh my God, this is so outrageous. Once you get past all of this, they have the material. Months before the trial, they got it. Okay. Unlike the Sally Port stuff, by the way, that apparently doesn't offend anyone, right? They have it. They can use it. They can use it at the retrial. But what I'm telling you is that most seasoned prosecutors who read the chessboard and read the room would not even waste 5 minutes in cross-examining these guys on bias in the form of, because your expenses were paid after you submitted an expense report without prior notice after the trial, and you rendered an opinion before you even knew who the defense was, and then you spoke to them after because the U.S. attorney said you can. If you think that is effective cross-examination, as I said, you really need your head checked. It's not.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Our friend from Mexico City keeps calling in on this point, which you just said.
What's
that
point?
The ARCA guys made up their mind, made up their report before they even knew who Alan Jackson was. Like they did that without talking to the defense. They talked to the FBI. That's who they were You know, so it's like the feds asked for a report. These guys came up with their conclusions. We're talking about money after the first trial. It's crazy. This is so insane. No question about it. Like the whole thing. And
Yeah,
the
I
fact
mean,
is she let Archer in today. She said she turned down Hanky Brennan on Arca today. I mean,
well,
that's the big
that was
thing.
never
Yeah.
not going to happen. For the very, again, don't, whatever you think of the judge, she's not stupid, okay? And people who say that they're wrong. She's not stupid.
No, she's not
But
stupid.
no, not at all. And whatever you think of her, the point is the ARCA witnesses are fundamentally as exculpatory gets. They are not put aside what Brendan wants to tell you. I mean, what do you expect him to do? He's got to do something by claiming they're biased, whatever. The fact of the matter is they're neutral because they rendered an opinion when they were literally neutral. That's what matters, okay? What influenced their opinion? Nothing. So the fact that they're being called as defense witnesses later and attended where they were eating lunch doesn't change what they did previously when they were neutral. So this is all just silly talk. But any judge in any court in America would recognize that because of how exculpatory they are, I mean, they literally nuke the entire DA case if they're credited by a jury. Of course, they have to be allowed to testify, because any judge would know that if you decline that or you deny that you're violating Karen's due process right to present a defense under the 14th and 5th Amendments. I mean, you have an 14th. You have an absolute right to defend yourself and use exculpatory evidence. And this is classic. It's not technically, it's actually not Brady material because it wasn't in the possession of the prosecutor in this case, but it is exculpatory. It favors them. It potentially exonerates her and wins the case. And the judge can't suppress that because I think you deliberately, didn't disclose months after the trial or weeks after the trial, whatever, that, they asked you for payment and you made it. And when you turned over some discovery a few months ago, you didn't mention that. And one of the lawyers who prepared the motion wasn't talking to the other lawyer. And that happens from time to time. You don't see everything. So maybe it gets worded, regrettably, because you didn't know what the other person knows. But for why the judge would interpret that as some devious, nefarious, deliberate attempt to mislead, I think that's just wrong. And I don't think a judge should be throwing that out so loosely, because those are, these are credentialed lawyers with reputations and careers. And she's right about one thing. She says, your reputation as a lawyer, that's your stock in trade. She's right. But I think she ought to be looking at the other side of the courtroom when she's giving that lecture.
Brennan. Yeah. Lally, Brennan. And this is from one of our moderators. She said this question, isn't she smearing Harker too?
Yes and no. I mean, not today. I mean, obviously, ARCA has no obligation to disclose evidence that would fall on the lawyers. So they're just witnesses. But when she starts saying that, it could be indicative of bias and they're doing this, and, to some extent, yeah, she's basically saying, are these guys, in fact, in the defense tank? It turns out they did their experiments based on science. It entirely supports the defense. I don't think it's unnatural that once they do learn about other aspects of the case, that they tend to support the idea that she's innocent because our scientific conclusions don't match what the DA is alleging. I think it's human nature for anyone in their position to say, in that regard, of course I favor the defense because my scientific experiment proves that the DA's theory is absolutely, unequivocally wrong.
The question that came in from A, she says, Mark, are they able to make another motion for recusal? And I'm going to add to that. Do you think they should? and she says she will not give it, but at least they can put everything on the record, and that could be in the press too. What do you think?
Well, I'm not going to speak for what they should do or strategy about it, but I mean, you can file, generally speaking, as many recusal motions as you want. I agree. It's not going to be granted. Any judge who are also human beings and have human nature are going to get more and more pissed off. It's probably, generally speaking, not wise at this point. And you have to also understand, if the recusal motion is based on, what we perceive as bias, it's interpretational, right? It's not, she didn't literally say something in a literal sense or do something in a literal sense that is, aha, you've admitted this, or done something bad, or had an ex parte communication and yelled at the lawyers, where you're like, aha, I got you now.
No smoking gun on it.
No, this is a perception of bias. And what I'm saying is, the more you watch, you see things like today, you see things like a couple of weeks ago, you see things with Russell Crosby. You see the lawyers get called to the carpet last week and raise their hand and promise to do better and whatnot. You see all of these misstatements by Brennan just kind of get shrugged off. You see no lack of, or at least no visual lack of concern about the Sally Port issue. You see no apparent concern about whether I'm troubled by this motion to dismiss to the extent I need a hearing. I mean, to me, that's a big tell. This case screams for an evidentiary hearing as it relates to the motion to dismiss. There are many, many unanswered questions, and there are also many, many statements made by the prosecution in the normal way they do it. They're not sworn. They're not real facts. They're gobbledygook. And one of those is that, the prosecutors assigned to the case literally for 2 years had no idea about any video. And if that turns out not to be true, right? If that turns out not to be true, then you would have not only potentially a very serious Brady violation, but you would have intentional misconduct, which would favor a more severe sanction, to wit, dismissal. So how are you deciding this motion without making a factual record by taking sworn testimony from all of these Canton police witnesses, all of the prosecutors from the first trial, certainly the members of the state police who are mixed up in all that? But apparently that's not going to happen because it's March 18th. Now, the wild card is if there's a stay, but even the stay wouldn't be very long.
Totally. Experts. It's been a bunch of experts that are expected, new experts for Karen Reed defense team this time. We found out about two of them because of Hank Brennan's filings. One of them is an FBI agent, retired, by the name of Mike Easter. Have you ever heard of him or known of him in your travels?
No? I saw the motion yesterday. I don't know him. I haven't come across him. I'm aware they want to call him to basically explain to the jury, how real cops do preserve crime scenes and investigate. I mean, that makes perfect sense for the defense in this case, given the nature of the defense and the significance of steps that were missed by the police in the early stages, which frankly are case killers. And I think the defense certainly ought to have the right to explain those abnormalities and or these inexplicable things that the cops didn't do, and explain to the jury, this is what real cops do.
What do you think about the fact that he's an FBI agent? Is that gonna impress the jury, or do you think it should have been like maybe more of a local or state police, or it doesn't make a difference at all? More than a person.
I mean, look, as long as they're competent in the subject matter, it's fine. I mean, I think generally, again, I'm broad stroking here.
Yes.
I think if you ask the general public, local cop, special agent of the FBI, the natural bias of most people will be special agent of the FBI. They tend to be more buttoned up. They tend to be less street, more polished, more buttoned up, just generally. Not like the old FBI agents, but the current FBI agents tend to be real buttoned up. But there are numerous more than qualified state people that were state police, local police. I mean, in my own experience, I can think of, 100 members of the NYPD who would be more than competent to testify about how to preserve a crime. I mean, like, for example, a perfect witness in this case would be, different police departments do different things, but in a huge department like the NYPD, they have a crime scene unit. Their job is they go to crime scenes and they are the ones who measure, take photos, voucher, fingerprint, swab for they are the the CSI guys that you see on TV. I guess I don't really watch that stuff, but I guess it would be something like that. I mean, if there was somebody like that, that would be fine. But the reality is this: the criticism of the crime scene here, the most relevant portions, it's not the solo cups and the Stop and Shop bags and the leaf blower, which is all like, wow, but the real failure, what I would call the case killers in the concept of reasonable doubt, are taking a crime scene and securing it. In other words, taking 34 Fairview Road from the first time the cops responded, which would have been 6, whatever, right? And having, for lack of a better term, a chain of custody of the crime scene, meaning the ability to have a police officer or 2 or 3, if they switch, to say, I sat on that scene, looked at it, and I can tell you nobody approached it, nobody came near it, and I watched it. And in other words, if they had done that, and it was credible testimony, and then they found taillight pieces at 5:45, well, guess what? There's no credible argument that taillight was planned, but they didn't do it.
Oh,
they didn't do it. So you don't know.
Yeah. How about putting a cruiser in front of it with a camera? Because those cruisers had cameras.
Anything, even just a cop to sit there and just make sure, but they didn't do it. A crime scene investigator or expert can also testify about the significance of documenting critical evidence at the moment it's found. Timing matters in this case. So, for example, when they found the SUV down in Dighton, or at 4:10, 4:15, whatever it was, they already knew that they'd already called for the tow truck right before they left. So they knew they were taking it, and they knew they were doing her for this crime. They knew it, even though they probably didn't have a lot of evidence. They were doing it, but that cuts against them. If they were so hot to trot to get her because it was a hit and run, and she did this, and they knew that she said, I cracked my taillight. Did I hit him? Did I hit him? I hit him. I hit him. Oh my God, my taillight. Like, they're all running around screaming, claiming she's saying. So you walk up to the car, you take a picture, and that picture is going to have metadata. I was talking about this last night elsewhere. Yeah, it has metadata. And if there's a picture of the taillight in the Dighton driveway at 4:12, in the afternoon, take a picture, and it's cracked the way it looked in the Sally Port 3 days later when they took a picture for the first time, well, guess what? That's what it looked like. They didn't do that either. And it's totally appropriate for a professional investigator to say there is a reason why you do these things. And that witness doesn't have to testify about, well, that means she's not guilty. Just the facts, like Joe Friday. That's what you do it. And then the lawyers are the ones that take that expert testimony and say, if they had done this, this, and this, you could give them more credence to what they're saying. But they didn't do any of that. And then the lawyers are going to say, and why was that? And it flows from there.
It's going to be powerful. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
We also know they have a new animal. I call them animal behaviorists, because when I call my my own dog trainer, he corrects me. He says he's actually a canine behaviorist, my dog trainer. But
Send
Garrett
send him
Wing,
over.
Garrett, what is what?
I said send
Send
him over here.
You
Yeah.
need a dog whisperer over there.
We need a dog just for this one, right? Yeah, just for you, not the other one. Yeah,
He's amazing. He is amazing. My guy is amazing. He's
Garrett Wing
he's
is the one. That's the one that was on Melanie's.
on
Like,
Melanie's show. Yeah, Garrett Wing.
I don't know who he is. I don't know much about him, but I remember hearing about him.
Yeah, he was on Melanie's show, and he talks about the dog bites, and he's an expert canine trainer. What do you think? Is that going to be allowed even or not? What do you think?
Well,
the
that's
judge will go on that one.
That the same expertise as Crosby.
Yeah.
So then, how could it not be allowed? Assuming he's credentialed and assuming he can explain his methodology and all that, satisfy the expert Daubert standards. I mean, look, if you ask me, I don't think any dog behaviorist of any sort should be testifying about the wounds unless they're capable of saying that I have observed, the aftermath of, however many dog bite, scratch. I mean, that's why Russell, whatever, the prosecution thinks of her, is so eminently qualified. I mean, she's giving you a medical explanation and also saying, I've treated these types of injuries as much as anyone else. I mean, I think she literally wrote the book on this kind of stuff. So I don't know why a behaviorist, unless they can somehow say, I've seen and observed so many of these and can explain and justify why their opinion matters any more than yours, for example, or mine, as opposed to a veterinarian or a doctor. I mean, a medical doctor is actually the correct one because it's a dog bite on a human being, right? So that's the issue. So to me, I don't think Crosby should be allowed, but by the same token, I would say this guy you're talking about wouldn't be allowed. But if the floodgates are open and the standards are thrown out the door and we're going to have a shit show, then, come on in, come one, come all. Why not?
It's funny too. The Garrett Wing, like we mentioned, was the first time anyone ever heard of him was on Melanie's show. She's got a great show, YouTube. I think people know her, attorney Melanie Little, but she featured him a few times, and those interviews really blew up. People loved those when she had him on the show. And you too, you've kind of coming on all these shows. That's how I think Aiden saw you, and then Karen, decided to hit you up. Have you ever seen anything with a trial where the defense is picking up witnesses and maybe even attorneys from YouTube shows? Has that ever happened before? Have you ever seen anything like that before?
Times are different. This is a just change in times and change in technology and change in access. I mean, certainly 20 years ago, you'd say, no, how could you? Everything would be word of mouth referral. But now you have easy way to watch this stuff, beat people. You have, a million amateur sleuths who really dig into this. No, and find things and become, sure. I mean, it's no joke. I mean, you don't, obviously not everyone is correct on what they hypothesize or theorize, but people find things. So, I mean, I think you'll see more and more lawyers doing that. That's one way to do it. I mean, and I think the prosecution has done that as well. And, I mean, look at the way they've hired their cell phone experts. I mean, they basically put out RFPs on the internet, which is highly unusual for a prosecutorial agency to do that. It's not impermissible. It's just unusual. The irony is normally what a state law enforcement agency who is seeking help on forensics, like cell phone forensics, they would go to the FBI. But obviously in this case, if they had gone to the FBI, that would have been a problem. I mean, in essence, they were conflicted out, for lack of a better term.
In this case, yeah. Romy says, do you have any predictions for March Madness? Bold predictions.
Not really. I'm not, I haven't followed it, college basketball, that closely this year. I mean, obviously, I like ASU and Syracuse. ASU is not good. Syracuse is not what they traditionally have been. So now I'm more NBA than college. So I hate Duke, though. I mean, if anybody cares.
Wins too much. Do they still win? I don't know. I
Yeah,
remember they still always win. Yeah.
I mean, they're Duke, yeah.
Can we chuckle at Hank undermining his own experts and stating that many of the neurosurgeon's patients had died? Talk about killing reputations. LOL. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I saw maybe some regrettable statements about that, and about talking about, a pathologist's patients, and of course, the pathologist is dealing with nothing but corpses, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't know that's funny. That's worth a joke, but it's kind of like some people were having a field day with in the interview last night. Well, that's different. One of, I don't even know which one, but one of the Proctor ladies made a literal statement saying that she agreed that Karen had been framed, but it's not like an aha thing. She didn't
mean to. She didn't mean to.
You gotta be fair. It's funny, but
it is funny. But she
wasn't
meaning to.
Funny, but she wasn't making a damning admission. She clearly
she meant the opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like when sometimes you say, I intend to do that, but you maybe say I didn't do that. You just misstate one word and it changes everything.
It happens.
It does. Happens to me a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why we have the chat to correct us, to make sure anything that gets, there are fact checkers. I love it.
Right.
Here's another Tristan Morris. Does adding people to the prosecution witness list effectively limit the scope of the cross-examination, muzzling them?
I'm not following. So someone is on the prosecution witness list. Why does that limit the scope of it? I'm not sure I understand that, to be honest with you. I mean, someone is on a witness list, they get called, they get examined.
Yeah, I think he's thinking about Aiden for some reason.
Well,
maybe.
We all know why. I'm not going to get into that in detail, but let's just say we all know why he's on the prosecution witness list, and that will be dealt with accordingly at some future time.
Perfect. Eric says, repicks. We don't know that they didn't take them, only that they haven't produced them. Why would they produce exculpatory pictures?
Well, so if they did what you're suggesting, then that would be egregious misconduct of the worst type imaginable and should result in the immediate dismissal of the indictment. If they are sitting on pictures of the taillight from Dighton and it doesn't match the Sally Port and what they claim the taillight looked like, then and they find out about that, if they find out about that pre-trial, the case is going to get dismissed, even in this court, okay? If they find out about it after trial, and God forbid, Karen comes in second, as lawyers say, which second in this case is not good, right? Then this case would be reversed in 5 minutes based on that, because that would be a classic Brady violation. That evidence is favorable to the defense. It would have been suppressed by the prosecution, and it would have been material to the outcome, which are the three elements of any Brady claim. And they better hope that's not the case. That would be outrageous. But I think more likely, by the way, just going by the defense theory as it's been suggested at the first trial, I believe what makes more sense on that theory is they wouldn't take the picture rather than create evidence that harms them just so they can hide it. I mean, if you don't have to create it in the first instance, you ignore it. or as Alan said in the first trial, look the other way, that kind of thing.
Gray Space says Wing teaches dogs to bite. He knows the mechanics. That's right. Mechanisms.
I don't think that's
Apparently,
the
he trains these police dogs. You know how like police dogs have to take someone down, so they teach them how to take somebody down. Like
that's behavioral, and I would again, I'm just being neutral to the process, and this goes to Crosby as well. I'm not picking on any expert, but behavior is not the issue. Nobody knows how the dog did it, if she did it, or how it came to be. The issue is you're looking at a deceased man's arm and trying to get an expert opinion on whether those are consistent with canine bites or scratches, and you have a medical doctor who says, I am totally used to seeing this, I treat this, and da 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 da. In my opinion, those are dog bites. That's proper. I don't, in my view, think it's proper for a behaviorist to say, here's how dogs bite, and well, that looks like dog bites, but I don't know. That's a different issue to me.
Eric says, Mike, he was a canine cop and a police dog trainer, not a behaviorist. It's funny.
I still don't know that's what you're thinking, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I just want to say, Eric, I'm just going with the word behaviorist because my dog trainer, that's what he calls himself, a behaviorist. He said the correct word is behaviorist, not trainer. I don't know. I think they're the same thing, basically.
To me, Russell's qualified, like clearly. In my view, all the dog issues in this case and all the experts, she laps the field on credentials and qualifications and is the proper expert type. But she had a very tough Daubert hearing, which was apparently a very close call. But
that's why that's ridiculous that she even said it was a close call, that she put that in writing. Like, that's very weird. That is like, it's unnecessary. Like, I don't know why she would put that in writing.
It seems gratuitous.
Yeah. A lot of gratuitous stuff coming from this judge. The things like, it's funny too, because when people say stuff in the heat of the moment, I think sometimes it's easier to give them a pass.
Well, writing is different.
Writing, yeah, like you see what I mean. Writing is different, especially, isn't it?
Well, yeah, no, I thought there was a gratuitous sentence in the opinion that was about me that mentioned, she already has 4 lawyers, 3 of whom are pro hoc. That struck me as gratuitous and unnecessary. But that's my opinion. That's all.
Ms. Holmes 66 says the prosecution has exculpatory picks. Could Beth give them a pass as her track record?
Well, again, speaking generally, if any judge were to, given the facts of this case, learn that there are photographs of the vehicle from the first time the cops saw it, and which, by the way, that would mean Buchanan and Proctor, right? They're the ones who saw it. And those pictures are dated from January 29th at 4:15 or whatever. And they are not consistent with 47 pieces of taillight missing, not consistent with how the taillight housing structure looked like in the Sallyport when they claimed they found it. If any judge were to learn about pictures of that nature being suppressed and depriving the defense of those before the first trial and even during the second trial, and didn't do something about it, and by something I'm talking severe, I mean, that's, again, flagrant, that's a dismissal type of sanction. Any judge who would ignore that, and by the way, I don't believe that evidence exists, so let me be very clear, but any judge who would ignore that, that would give reason to believe something is not right here, And that certainly could be perceived as corrupt.
Another question, trial April 1st, been a lot of discussion online about whether that's actually going to happen on April 1st, especially with some of Bev's demeanor today pushing things off. Do you think it will happen April 1st? Do you think it's going to start on April 1st with the jury selection or not?
It's not up to her. I mean, they're being nice and trying to make it easy, just get the stay. But at the end of the day, there is a appellate court, the First Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston, which is a higher court. Okay, I mean that's one step from the U.S. Supreme Court. For those who don't know how this works, I mean if you were denied in the First Circuit, the only place to go is the U.S. Supreme Court, who takes like 1% of the petitions they receive to get cases. So it's a high court. Let's just put it that way. Right now, the DA wants to try her for 3 counts, including murder. It's not inconceivable. It's probably not likely, but it's not inconceivable that a higher court can do one of 2 things: get rid of the murder count as well as another count, or kick it back to Cannoni and say, you should have done a hearing. So what's the practicality of all this? You can't start a trial on April 1st if this issue is not resolved, because what are the freaking charges? Nobody knows. You can't do that. And what Alan said to her, and you better believe she understood loud and clear, by the way, because again, she's not stupid. If you start a trial, jeopardy attaches, okay? Jeopardy attaches when when the first juror is sworn, okay? When you swear in the jury. That's when jeopardy attaches at a jury trial. As soon as juror number 1 takes the oath, jeopardy is attached and it's now a trial, okay? And if you start a trial and there has to be a mistrial because of everything got screwed up because of what's going on in the federal court, you're looking at that trial getting thrown out, and you're looking at an even stronger double jeopardy argument, which almost certainly would be the end of the whole thing. So unless the federal court comes back and denies this prior to April 1st, there is 0% chance that the trial would start on April 1st. If they come back and order a hearing, there is 0% chance that the trial is starting on April 1st.
Wow.
If they come back on March 28th and deny it and say we're done here, then she could start. Now they could say we want to, file for what they call certiorari, which is a petition to get the U.S. Supreme Court to hear a case. They're not going to stop the case, I don't believe, because of that. But the real doomsday scenario is if they send it back for a hearing, if that's what really happened, which I'm not suggesting it would, then the judge, meaning Cannoni, would have to issue another decision, and they could theoretically go back the same path they went, arguing that decision is wrong. And then now you're having a trial potentially pushed off. You're talking months and months at that point. So if you put a gun to my head right now, I would say it's 50-50 April 1st. And the only way it would be April 1st is if the First Circuit denies it outright within, today's March 18th, within 10 days. And that's with the briefing schedule, any argument, and full decision. They could do it, but that's a hell of a lot of work.
Seems wild that they would think that they're going to do it in 2 weeks, basically.
Well, I don't understand the significance of the April 1st date. I mean, I get that.
April
No, I mean,
Fool's
obviously, well, no, what I mean is
so weird, isn't it? April Fool's Day. That's the day.
Every judge likes to have a schedule and to hold to it. Well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And you're supposed to move proceedings. And she's very good at that. She's moving proceedings, okay? But there are times that things come up and you can't hold on and clutch April 1st at the expense of serious issues that could delay it. And the obvious one to me is the motion to dismiss. This thing feels like it's just getting jammed in. It's getting rushed. It's not getting fleshed out. I mean, I've done a lot of hearings on, Brady violations and where prosecutors and cops have to testify. If there was a hearing in this, that's like a multi-week hearing. Okay, if I'm doing this, I'm calling like 15 witnesses from the Canton Police, the State Police, the DA's office to get to the bottom of all of this. And that takes weeks. And you can just tell that the motion to dismiss is not catching any traction, even though when lawyers watch this, and again, this could be any case, it doesn't have to be this case, and you find out that you're talking about video which may in fact show the car at a certain time going in the Sally Port. Some of the evidence that they did disclose was inverted. That's a whole nother story. They didn't disclose all this other video. It keeps coming drips and drabs. After trial, you find out the Higgins video. Any lawyer who watches this would say, this is crazy. Like this is crazy town. What's happening here? And why is this not a serious issue that requires an evidentiary hearing? And the reason it requires a hearing is because the DA doesn't submit affidavits. They've alleged nothing. It's gobbledygook. But even their explanations are really unsatisfactory. Even if they were sworn, there'd still be questions of fact that have to be resolved, and that there ought to be findings of fact before the judge issues a decision to dismiss for serious misconduct. But I mean, based on what you're seeing and based on the clock, it just doesn't appear that that's going to happen.
So talk in the chat about the tow truck driver, since you brought up the tow.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think neither the defense or the prosecution has brought out this tow truck driver as a witness? Because we've seen somebody apparently talk to them. There's some like cell phone audio on Twitter and X that a lot of us have seen with the tow truck driver saying, it wasn't what the state police are making out to. Why hasn't the defense, do you think, gotten him on the stand?
Not in the public record, and that guardrails. I can't, and I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not even going to speculate as to what they're doing or why. Again, I have a kind of a unique history in this whole thing last month.
Let's keep you safe.
I don't think it would be appropriate to dive into things that are just not in the public realm already.
Here's another question about him that just hypothetical, doesn't require. Says, what happens if they ask Barros, that's the same police officer that was there from Dighton, if they took pictures and he says yes?
Well, then that's a serious problem for the prosecution, because again, this is public record. The man testified at the first trial, okay? Which means the prosecution spoke to him, they met with him. He's also a police officer, so any evidence that he has is in their possession, custody, and control. It's the same analysis. If that turns out to be favorable to the defense, it wasn't disclosed, that means it was suppressed, and you're back to an egregious Brady violation, which, by the way, Brady violations don't require intent. So even if like this guy took pictures and just forgot or didn't think of it, that doesn't excuse it in a legal sense. Now that may be less offensive to people as opposed to putting it, in the Brady shredder that may exist at, certain prosecutors' offices around the country. That's a joke. But if there are pictures of the car and they weren't disclosed to the defense, that is something that the judge should be looking at in the context of an egregious Rule 14 violation. And if it was deliberate and candor to the court and all that lecture that you saw, that would be offensive. And that would be 1,000 times more offensive than a $20,000 travel bill to, very competent PhDs who sent the bill after a trial. I mean, you've got to keep context and perspective about what matters. The ARCA trips don't matter, not really. I mean, again, I don't even think they'll be crossed about it. It's that petty. If there are photos of the car that blow up the whole prosecution case, what could matter more than that? Nothing.
That I got to get to a super chat here that I've been neglecting about, and it's about ARCA. You just brought it up. Perfect timing. Gray Space says, what about Brennan's new opposition that accuses the defense of colluding with the feds and therefore ARCA from the beginning of the investigation?
I think that's an embarrassing argument. I think it's a disgraceful argument. There's no basis in fact for it. They don't allege any basis in fact. He has an opinion, but that's what a lot of his arguments are. He's expressing his opinion, but nobody cares about the prosecutor's opinion when you're in court, okay? That's why you have to use facts and law and argue. You can certainly encourage the court to draw inferences and argue the same way when you do a closing argument, you ask the jury to draw inferences. But one thing a prosecutor or a defense attorney can never do is offer their opinion. That's unethical. It's actually that's what they call giving unsworn testimony. All right, you can't do that. But the similar to the unsworn testimony thing are the unsworn affidavits that go in the motions, and it's the same exact concept. And that's what this guy does again and again. And so he can scream and yell all he wants that clearly the feds were colluding with ARCA. The irony is, they like to poo-poo the tinfoil hats of the defense and the people who believe in the defense. This is a triple XL tinfoil hat. If you seriously believe that these people were colluding at the time they rendered an opinion, that's what is that based on? Other than
I was gonna say, it's based on Grant Smith, Ellis, and Kevin Cottage Tale fiction. That's what it's hilarious. That's exactly where it seems like it's coming from.
It's hard to fathom that a lawyer would put that in a pleading in a case like this, particularly where everyone reads everything and then runs to online and says who's smart, who's stupid, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. This is the kind of thing that invites. But I mean, I don't even think he's writing 90% of the motions just based upon the fact that his name is misspelled so often. That's not even a joke. That is a tell that he's not writing it. I don't think anybody misspells their own name in legal filings.
Yeah, that'd be difficult to do. I mean, you spell your name so many times in your life. It just
you would do that, and then you would hit spell check. I mean, God.
That's true.
Breenan is not a word. I mean, that's going to come up on spell check unless they've done it so many times that they've add to dictionary or
when you change it. They ignore it. Yeah, just.
I mean, this thing of colluding with the feds, based on what?
Karen Reed controls the feds. Karen Reed controls the FBI.
Say whatever you want. It doesn't make it true. I mean, I could say that, I'm an automobile, but I'm not. And just saying it doesn't make it so.
A couple more questions came in. I'm just trying to scroll down to them, back down to the bottom. Here's a good comment from Eric again. He says, so confused, reverse video withheld, intentionally lied about by Commonwealth in order to convey wrong impression to jury. That isn't automatic dismissal.
Well, so I know we talked about this a long time ago and maybe even more recent. What shocked me is when this inverted video fiasco came to light, and you saw, number one, that they used a video that's not accurate. Number two, the witness, certainly, by the way, I define misleading testimony or perjury, perjured himself by saying it was a fair and accurate depiction. And it doesn't matter how cute Buchanan tried to get about, if you remember the back and forth about, well, it's fair and accurate. It's just mirrored, which leads to my next point. guy, it doesn't have the right taillight, and you're purporting to show the right taillight when in fact it's the left taillight, which is essentially perpetrating a fraud on the jury, the defense, and the court. Okay. And that matters not only because it's the wrong taillight, but it's also concealing a certain individual who's kind of important in this whole story, who happens to be standing at the right taillight. And by mirroring the video, whether it was on purpose or not, you're taking him and the taillight out of there. And then you tell the jury on direct that that is a fair and accurate depiction. So the questions that you have to ask yourself are, did he lie? Did he prep with Lally? Did Lally suborn perjury? Did he know? How do you not know? Canton spelled backwards and whatever. Then when it comes to light, if you recall in his direct examination, he was very clear in identifying himself and very clear in identifying Proctor. But once the cute act wore off and he knew he was, you know, this kind of a situation here with this video, he got a real strong case of amnesia. And at first, I think he declined to say it was the same frame. And it was like, dude, look at this one, look at that one. Maybe it's like 1 millimeter different, but look. And he then refused to identify himself. He refused to identify Proctor. If you don't think that's sketchy, I don't care if you guilt, innocence, if you don't think that's sketchy, that's one where you need your head checked, okay? That should have been a mistrial. And I mean, look, again, Massachusetts is a strange place, the way they do this. What I can tell you that would have happened in you know, other parts, certainly where I come from, you would have stood up, they would have cleared the jury out, because this is not for the jury, obviously. And you would make a record, and a judge would look at the prosecutor and say, what the hell is going on in my courtroom, and how do you explain this? And why didn't I need to know, why didn't you, if you were going to play this stupid video, you know, maybe I would allow you to do it if you said it's a mirror image. And said, I mean, what any ethical prosecutor would have done is elicit on direct that it was mirrored, and then would have gone the next step and said, just to be clear, Sergeant, that taillight, which appears to be the right taillight, is that in fact the left? And if he says, yes, it is, I still don't think the video should come in, but I'm less offended by the shenanigans and unethical behavior that's going on. And that, by all accounts, based upon the first trial, didn't bother anyone in the courtroom other than the defense table. And that's stunning to me.
Hockey is like, where's my car? When he got amnesia, he's like, all of a sudden he's like, I don't know. I was baked, man. I don't know what's going on.
You have to. It's not just that the video was inverted and that he gave testimony that it was fair and accurate, and it's not. You have to dig deeper. The consequence of that action was to make the left taillight appear to be the right taillight, and that there was nobody next to it, when in fact the right taillight was there and Proctor was directly next to it. That's amazing. Kind of, you know, it would, you know, Jerry Seinfeld said years ago, you know, that's kind of a big matzo ball floating out there. That's a big one.
That's a big matzo ball to not see the soup.
But that just kind of glazed over. And, you know, other than, you know, and a lot of the questions were sustained about, did you meet with Lally? You know, if you go back and watch the examination and stuff, a lot of that stuff was sustained. In other words, they never were allowed to get and peel that onion back in front of the jury. Now they're trying to do it in the motion to dismiss, but don't you think Lally should testify about that? Don't you think Buchanan should testify about that? Don't you think Proctor should testify about that? Don't you think Rafferty should testify? Don't you think?
Yes,
Sergeant,
yes, yes,
whatever,
yes. I can't wait. Is
letters?
that going to happen? Do you think they'll
No,
all be in the
they're
stand answering
clearly
questions?
not, because look at the schedule they're keeping. They're starting trial ostensibly in 2 weeks. The best chance of them having a hearing is if they get a stay, because then, you know, now there's time. But the schedule should never impede upon a defendant's right to a fair trial and exposing misconduct and exposing due process violations and getting the proper sanction for that, which they allege is dismissal. So April 1 should not impede that. Due process is more important than starting trial on a day that you all want to start the trial.
I want to see them all in the stand answering. Like you said, Rafferty, Proctor, Buchanan, they all need to answer for it.
But the thing is, it's actually logical. I mean, they're necessary witnesses. It's not even a stunt. It's not, woo, this is interesting. The public's going to love it. You guys are going to get great numbers talking about it. As lawyers, it's necessary. It's important. Hell, you could even, I mean, I would call Brennan and say, what did Lally tell you? You know, you've been telling us for months, you came into this case and, you know, I don't know, but you never told us what Lally told you. What is his excuse, other than you now know on some level the excuse is, you know, Sergeant Schultz from, you know, Hogan's Heroes. I know nothing. I didn't know for 2 years about this video. And I think there's a lot of people who find that hard to believe, that an experienced, seasoned prosecutor in a murder case like this, knowing all the key issues in this case, literally for 2 years, had no idea that there was video that was in the possession of the lead investigator, the guy that he would have spoke to the most over those 2 years. And at no time did Proctor tell him there's video. And the video would have been very important, by the way, not even just for showing the taillight, for the timeline of whether evidence could or could not have been planted. And once the defense made that an issue in the case, which would have been, I think, early 23, I don't remember, something like that. Any reasonable prosecutor, to the extent they didn't know then, would have found out and or asked the right questions. And any credible investigator who's been sitting on video in his back pocket for a year at that point would have said, oh, no, we have video and we can show what time we were there. And you can see that we're not touching it. And you can see that there would have been no way to transport some taillight pieces a few miles away. And you're to believe that first came up when Proctor went to a federal grand jury. I think that's what they put in their motion. And isn't it interesting that it took the feds to scare the shit out of him, and for him to, you know, at least in that regard, at least acknowledge it.
It comes clean after the feds come in and ask the questions. I mean, that's not a good sign.
No, it's a crime to lie to the FBI, and certainly in a grand jury it would be perjury for sure.
ER has a question going back to the witness list. He says, if Commonwealth puts someone on witness list, doesn't that prevent the defense from speaking with them because in mass, no depositions in criminal cases?
You can try. I mean, you can have an investigator try. The witness can tell you to go, you know, F yourself. They have every right to do that. They're not obligated to do it, but you have every right to attempt to speak to witnesses unless there's a reason, you know, that a court order that precludes you because there's a stay away order or, you know, those kinds of things. But even that wouldn't apply to an investigator or a lawyer as long as it's a good faith about the case. No, they I mean, if they wanted to go knock on the door of Brian Albert and say, can we speak to you? They could do that. I mean, he's not going to speak to them.
Not going to say anything, but yeah. He won't.
But they can legally, you could try if you wanted to.
You can ask. Not against the law.
No.
Tiff says Hank going through communications himself. How about that part? About
Can't
he's
touch
going through.
um, communications, from the district attorney and others and whatnot. That's guardrails.
That's right. You can't touch that. I forgot about
No,
that.
no,
If
no.
we tried. We can't get. I'm glad you know exactly where the guardrails are, Attorney Bederow. Siobhan says, "Hi guys, Jackson and all the crew must be flabbergasted with all the goings on in this court. It's unreal."
Listen, they keep their cool, they stay focused.
Didn't they? Today they did. I mean, that was just.
They're professional. I mean, look, but again, you have to understand, these are seasoned lawyers who have tried very high stakes cases and handled very high profile things. And there's a reason why, real lawyers practice the level they do. You have to go with where you are, and they do it. I mean, I'm sure it's not pleasant at times. Obviously, I've been there, I know, but they're handling it the way you'd expect a professional to handle it. What are you going to do?
There's a question too. I'm going to put two of them together. A says, "What if Bev already denies the motion for dismissal, no hearing or anything? Does the defense have any recourse prior to the trial starting?" And we also had this comment here. Why hasn't AJ at all fighting harder for dismissal on so many things the prosecution has and is doing?
I'm not aware that he's not fighting hard. I'm not sure I agree with that. All of them, not just him. I mean, I think they're fighting a war to try to save a woman's life, and I think they're doing it well. There's a lot going on here. I think they've been bombarded with a lot of, silly motions, frivolous motions without merit. And, maybe that's a strategy to kind of overwhelm them and keep them from doing, there's only so many people who can do so much, on a certain schedule. But I don't agree with the theory that they're not fighting hard. I think they're pretty sharp elbowed men and women and are fighting like hell, and to a man and woman on that team. So I just respectfully don't agree with that. Now, if she denies the motion for dismissal, tee it up for trial. I mean, that's just what it's going to be.
Edward has this question. Mark, have you ever had a judge tell you you only get the questions that fit on one double-sided page for a jury?
Again, this could be a cultural thing. The only place where you will ever really, that I've ever seen, limited jury selection in federal court, a lot of times the judges will take charge. But certainly in New York State court, I've never in my life seen any case in any county, whether it be, and this is in, all over New York City, all over the suburban counties, Albany, other places. I've never seen a situation where the lawyers do not get to question jurors, and that it is purely the judge. That is, and maybe that's a Massachusetts thing. I've obviously never tried a case in Massachusetts. I don't know. That strikes me as, wow. I think both sides ought to have a right to talk to the jury, press issues that concern them. I don't even like the idea of the court literally screening what will be said. I mean, in any trial I've ever been a part of, the judge starts and there are the threshold questions. Do you live in this county? Have you ever been convicted of a crime? Have you ever been a victim of a crime? Have you ever served on a jury? I mean, there are those standard questions. But after that, where I come from, the judge will trust the lawyers to voir dire on issues that they believe are relevant and important to the case. And if you step out of bounds, then the judge will reel you back in. The other side will object. And I mean, it's okay to let lawyers try a case and object out loud and deal with it. I mean, I think that's a huge disadvantage to the defense, because I just think they're, the people on the defense who I assume would do the voir dire, whether it be one or more, are just very charismatic. I think they're more charismatic than the prosecution team. Just as a style, it's not an intelligence, right? As a style, and I think that's a chance to connect with jurors. And I think you ought to be able to raise issues that you think are important without having to screen through the judge and have the judge do it. So I hate it. I've never seen it in this kind of trial, and it's another one of those Massachusetts weird things to me. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. Seems like she limits them on everything, even the closing, how long you can close for. I mean,
Question that you would need a Massachusetts lawyer to answer. I just don't know the answer. I'm not going to make something up.
No.
I don't know if this is normal there. I'm hard pressed to believe it is, but I don't know.
His one comes from Calico 26. If the trial has stayed, will they fire Proctor?
I mean, you'd have to think at this point they're just dragging him around and holding on to him, and they don't want him to be terminated at the time of trial. And again, people get cynical, and this calls into question the public confidence in the criminal justice system. Are the state police playing games by dragging this out so it doesn't hurt the case? Is the DA involved in this? I don't know, but this gets people in the public to become jaded, cynical, and believe that there could be corruption or shenanigans going on, and that they're putting their hand on the scale. If this guy's a piece of shit and not worthy of being a state trooper and he ought to be fired, if that's the decision, then fire him. If you're not going to fire him, if that's the decision you want to make, then, own it and do it. You shouldn't be holding Proctor's status in a state of flux because you're concerned how it's going to impact Karen's trial. That's not right. And people should be calling out the state police for that. And of course, the other thing is to question, have they been requested by the DA not to do it? I have no idea. I'm not even making an accusation, but if I was an amateur journalist, those are the questions I would be asking. I would be asking the, what do they call him? The colonel, right? What's taking so long? It's not that complicated, one way or the other. And have you been asked by anyone to hold off? And if so, who? That's a question a journalist should be asking.
Ted Daniel or some of these other ones, Rex, that are full timers, go out there and ask some of these questions. Shouldn't be always up to Aiden. Aiden's like the only one that would do these kind of things.
It's a logical question to wonder. I mean, he got put on leave right after the trial, so even that may be some evidence of shenanigans. They waited till the trial was over so that the jury didn't know. All right, that doesn't bother me that much. But July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, going into April, 3 hearing dates or whatever it is, make a decision. And you have to think they have made a decision, because if they haven't, do you think that the Proctor women are going out and scorching earth like that? If his status is not determined, who in the hell would ever advise that PR fiasco? Nobody.
What did you think? Because since then, not only have they done this statement through the weird dude from Rhode Island, now they've done WCVB Channel 5. They did the interview on Channel 5. Did you get to see that? What did you think of it?
I mean, I thought it was a bad interview. I mean, I'm not offended that the media would seek to follow up. I think that's an appropriate inquiry. But if you're going to do an inquiry, are you just handing them a microphone and letting them rant? Or are you going to drill down and say, you poo-poo these text messages, and, he said I wish she would kill herself. And so did you, meaning, the one he's talking to in the interview. And, you made phone calls, right? Trying to get people fired. I mean, are these the people that you want speaking out? And there's all kinds.
Isn't it amazing? Isn't it? Because that's exactly what I said about WCVB, the reporter. Like, he should have been quoting those text messages. What the hell was he doing? He didn't. It was the most softball thing I've ever seen. Like you said, what is going on over there?
There are so many obvious questions. I mean, when I say obvious, they're obvious. They didn't ask. The first obvious question would have been, no disrespect to you. What are their names? Courtney and Elizabeth. Why are we talking to you instead of Michael? That's number one.
Yeah, right.
Number one. Number two is he willing to make a statement? And number three, has he said to you or anyone else, expressed genuine remorse? Has he ever reached out? Not that he can call Karen Reed, that would be inappropriate. But has he ever in any way apologized? Why didn't he apologize at the trial? That would have been the most effective thing. If they want to make him a credible witness who believes that she's guilty, who just sent some regrettable text, the smart move for him would have been to look at her, while she's sitting at the table and say, that was wrong. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. I owe you an apology. And I sincerely apologize for that. But they didn't do any of that. And nobody asked them. And, whatever. So they do an interview. It is what it is. But nobody's asking the questions.
Puff piece. It was just
ridiculous. No, it's clearly a puff piece. I mean, there were literally no questions. It was just, here's the microphone.
Here's a microphone. Yeah. Say whatever you want. We'll put it on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, obviously, I'm biased in the sense that, I have relationships with a lot of people and have an opinion, and that it's totally appropriate for someone to say, well, anything you say, you represent these people, or you are involved with so who are you? That's fair. Would it have made sense to point out that Channel 5, has Brian Albert's lawyer? Maybe, maybe not. The same thing with that, if you saw that show last night, when they're interviewing Joe Krowski, who doesn't bother me in the least bit. I think he's, I've chatted with him. I don't care who he represents. That's lawyer to lawyer. It doesn't offend me. But he did represent a very important witness in this case. And I'm just surprised that they didn't point that out in having him on. I think it's not inappropriate to have him on. He's a credentialed lawyer, but I think probably, that's one where you point out that he represented Colin Albert. That's all.
Admissions, that what they don't put on the screen, what they don't share. That's what drives me the most crazy about a lot of it.
Well, I mean, that thing last night, I mean, I don't know when the third one is supposed to air, but I mean, that portends ominous.
Did you like it or not? Because I watched none of it. I decided.
No, I think it's horrible for the defense. Horrible.
Oh boy.
I did watch it.
That was the one that I remember. I hit you up and I said, I'm trying to get you in touch with them, and they never followed up with you. That's just.
I don't specifically remember that, but I definitely, for this thing, I was never contacted.
Yeah. No, I know you weren't.
I was interviewed at length by that Phelps guy, but that never made it in, I don't think, because I didn't watch any of that.
Funny as hell.
Yeah.
It's funny how when they want to do a negative piece, they won't include you.
Listen, I don't care about that, but I'm watching this thing last night. It's not good. I mean, it feels a little hit piece, but when they bring in, expert Coffindaffer, then they're why? I mean, yeah. I mean,
I guess they're gonna have some. I don't know if he was in last night or he's gonna be in the future, but the guy in the attic apparently made the cut. He's gonna be in it.
did not see him, but I will also tell you, I mean, a little like I feel like dirty and need to take a shower, but I can't wait to see that with him in it.
That'll be the best part of it.
And
Yeah,
that
really.
would be entertaining. I mean,
Yeah. LTL and I got interviewed for it several times, and they cut us. I'm glad they didn't interview you. That would have made me even madder if I referred you to them. They wasted your valuable time, and then they didn't use it. That would have made me even madder.
They have a lot of people. I mean, you've seen some of these people before. A lot of friends of John O'Keefe, which is appropriate. I mean,
yeah.
Including the one that was his girlfriend like 25 years ago, and
Berrigan, yep.
Whatever. I'm not gonna make fun of it, but it was a strange, with all the people they have, it's just kind of a weird choice. But I mean, whatever. They interviewed Coffin Taffer, who had this scowl on her face.
That's what I saw this morning. The meme of her face. Oh my God.
It was weird. It was weird. You just said they're going to have the other guy on it, which is, and then there's a lot of Karen and the lawyers. But it clearly has an editorial, in my view, skew that's not what I would call favorable. And, it's airing obviously right before jury selection. It's not ideal.
Helping her.
No, it absolutely, I don't think it helps. But you can't control what these people do.
No.
I mean, they're gonna, everyone does these productions in their own way. And, if you don't have editorial control, I mean, I don't think it's going to, I'm not missing the Celtics. Someone's saying they're losing in a meaningless game against Brooklyn, and they're not playing Tatum or Brown. It's one of these scheduled losses.
Doesn't matter.
No, but it's on.
A night off. They get a night off. Are they resting tonight?
Well, they're pretty much locked. They're locked into the 2 seed, so they're in that rest guys for the playoffs mode. Whatever. No, but I don't like it. It feels editorialized in a negative way to me. Particularly the first episode, I thought. But that I don't think it's not gonna change the result. Don't get me wrong. It's just.
This doesn't help. Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
That's why I'm not watching it, because it'll get me fired up. I'm skipping it. Bay State has a question. What about jury tampering? Shouldn't Fanning be made to testify about the rumor that disqualified a juror?
I'm not going to get into any of that. That's kind of guardrail as well. But what I would say in a general sense, if there are allegations of fact that, if true, would warrant a remedy, a sanction that benefits the defense, and the prosecution does not refute it or does not adopt it or cannot establish why it doesn't warrant them to relief, that's why you have evidentiary hearings. And if that were the case, then any witness who qualifies on that standard ought to be hauled in. I mean, that's just the way it is. But I'm not going to get into that stuff.
A comment from Camera Obscura. They don't think that Bev actually trusts Brennan. I think they are two sides of the same coin, long con. What do you think about that? That they don't believe that Bev actually trusts Brennan.
Well, I mean, what is the point being made here? She doesn't trust him, so I'm not following. I'm not trying to be dense. I'm not following.
No, I get it. Yeah,
I'm not here to suggest anyone is corrupt or whatever. I don't like a lot of things going on in the courtroom. I mean, I think I really don't like a lot of things the prosecutor says and the manner he says them without any factual support, and then gets up and I thought those shots that he took at Allen today were disgraceful. To suggest that what he was talking about was somehow fraudulent, I mean that was disgraceful. There's no excuse for that, and I'm glad he got up and responded to that. But Look, this is, said this before, this is not a good trial for people to see who have no experience in how the criminal justice system works. This is an outlier. This is not normal.
Not typical. Yeah, not normal.
Virtually nothing that's going on here is normal.
There's a comment from A again. This was a good comment. I was called for a high-profile case in my state, and we had to go in on a Saturday and answer a 30-page questionnaire.
Well,
What a
now we want to know what state and what high-profile case.
Yeah, what kind of questions? I want to know what kind of questions they were asking you. You don't have to, memorize every question, but just give us an idea. Interested to see too. Kyle is going back to talking about Proctor says suspended without pay only happens if they're sustaining the letter of charges. He was suspended from the start. They're stalling. It seems very clear. I mean, I think they're going through the process. I think they're stalling too.
Yeah, and again, you can look for certain tells. Are they giving this fiery press campaign if he's still in a state of limbo? No. They know.
They know. Writing's on the wall. All right.
Oh, okay.
Here's another question too that came in. Any thoughts on why the defense witness list hasn't been posted? We don't know, right? You don't know. You probably can't say.
I didn't know that's the case, but I would suggest that's odd that one side's list would be and the other would not. There's no reason that should be the case. There's no reason that should be shielded from public view as a filed document that I can think of.
This is a funny comment right here. Vinaya says, bucket list, get a few drinks at Bederow, have him take off his ethical lawyer hat and admit once and for all that Bev is corrupt. Some red wine. Get him a little red wine, a steak, and you never know what might happen there.
The red wine won't do it. The whiskey after the wine might do it.
A little whiskey too.
Bourbon, yeah. Anyway,
bourbon.
Couple maybe more than a couple. Several fingers of Woodford maybe might do it.
Yeah, I noticed when you're in town too, you have a driver driving you around, so you can kind of do that, can't you? When you're in Boston.
Well, yeah. I mean that someone has to drive if you're.
But a Mai Tai at the Kowloon.
What did I get there? It wasn't bad. I was surprised. I didn't expect it. Their little island drink there was good. I don't remember what it was, but I don't really drink at Kowloon that often, believe it or not.
I might have to get one of those. That sounds good, actually. I usually don't drink, but I like the taste of it. Like some of the drinks, you know what I mean? About the flavor.
They go well with roasted carrots, right?
They what?
The Mai Tais go well with roasted carrots.
You guys are still killing me on the carrots. So people got mad. You were like, get rid of those. I didn't expect that to be such a, I don't know.
You roasted carrots with wings. Yeah, no, I'm not feeling that.
The wings and carrots. That's what it. And other people were mad that I had no seasoning. Like you look at Maz's wings, it's all like he's got all the juices and he's really into it.
Well, he's a veteran of that.
Yeah, I'm cooking. Basically, I'm cooking for someone that wants them that way. So I try to keep her happy. I like them either way.
Okay.
But the carrots are about me though. She doesn't care about the carrots.
I got nothing.
I like the roasted carrots. It's caramelized. Oh my god!
I'm not anti-roasted carrots, but
not with chicken wings. That's it. You want to? Yeah. I go all out. I'm always doing the carrots.
No Jameson and ginger. No, we don't. No.
Is that what Higgins drinks?
Yeah, that's his funny. No. If it's going to be Irish whiskey, it'll be something else than that. But do
you like does Bailey's Irish cream count, or is that like too?
No, that's not me.
No. No, he's like, no. Edward Fitzpatrick said she even admonished the defense for not having witness lists submitted. Clerk Jim did not correct her that it wasn't posted. So I guess it's Clerk Jim that hasn't posted it.
No, I mean, if that's true, that's again, you see something like that, and it's tough to justify that.
She wants me to go back and look for the ones that I haven't read. I thought I did read hers. Didn't I read it? You don't remember? I did. We read this one, didn't we?
No, this is an updated one because
I mean, we posted on the screen. Yeah. I mean, I think it's you are updating. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with. I mean, they put up with it. They do it the way that professionals do it, and that's why clients want to hire lawyers like that. That's why juries like lawyers like that, and that's why lawyers at this level tend to win more than they lose. So that's why they're here. They're going to work hard. They're going to do the right thing, and I would expect they're going to prevail.
Excellent. What do you think? Anything else is going to big happening in Karen Reed upcoming that we should kind of keep an eye on, or even with the motions that haven't been decided?
I mean,
you're interested in?
Fascinated to see the decision in the motion to dismiss on how that gets handled. If I was a betting person, I would assume the decision will be a denial without a hearing and will gently criticize the prosecution as a whole for not disclosing the video properly. In other words, technically a Rule 14 type violation. But again, the real motion is based on Brady. And then I think she will say that to the extent any of this is favorable, it's not material, meaning it could not possibly have impacted the outcome. Therefore, ergo, ipso facto, denied.
You poked at me about the carrots. What do you think about I got rid of the shower curtain?
It looks better back there. The blue, and I see you've got, not only do you have the flowers going there, but you have like the strategic ambient lighting emphasizing the flowers. That definitely is not you. That's got to be somebody else. No way you did that. That's a lot of.
I did it. You know what, though? Not really. I did it, but it's not really me. It's funny.
No, that's well.
I'm getting influenced by LTL. Look how good his stuff looks. So
you have a hockey picture back there. Is that what I'm looking at?
What is it?
It looks like a hockey photo behind you.
Yes, that is. There's a guy named Bruce Mittman who's like a big radio guy. He owns a bunch of stations, and I guess when he was at AAF, I don't know if he quit or got fired. He was like a bigwig, a suit. You know what I mean, like the general manager type. And the day he left, all this, the stuff that was left behind.
Right. Okay.
My girlfriend's like, "Oh, my son will like this," and it's like a signed artist, and yeah,
no, cool.
He could come and take it back. Mittman might be like, "Oh, there it is. I've been looking for that for 20 years."
Now we like the setup better than the shower curtain for sure.
Definitely better than the shower curtain.
Yeah.
You said, you know me too well. It's funny now. You're like, you didn't do that. You didn't do that. That's not you.
The ambient lighting is next level, but I mean, it's beyond my pay grade. I just assumed yours too. That looks to have a feminine touch. That's all.
A feminine touch.
Meaning that's a detail that, would whoosh right over us.
Right over my head. Yeah. Usually. It's funny because I got yelled at. She didn't like that I changed the curtains. I didn't ask for permission. I just did it. You know how it is.
Yeah.
Mr. Bederow, I know you follow the Epstein release. LOL. Any opinion on the JFK docs that are getting released?
I don't follow the Epstein release. I have, in due course, a lot to say about Epstein, but not today. I think releasing the JFK docs is fascinating only because, I was a history major. I've read some of these books on, the JFK assassination. Years ago, I used to go to Dallas on business a lot. We had a client out there, so we'd go to Texas like 3 or 4 times. And the first time I went to Dallas and had 2 hours to kill, I had 2 things to do. Number one was go to Schleppers to get a pair of shit kickers that I had to bring home because I wanted real Texas boots. And then the other was I had to go to Dealey Plaza and see, the Texas School Book Depository and the grassy knoll and all of that. So I find that fascinating and really interested to see what it is. I mean, I don't know what's in there, obviously, but yeah, no, I think if you're a history buff, that's amazing.
Definitely. I was a history major too. Hey, you both history majors. And I went there too. I went to Dealey Plaza.
Yeah, no, I've read books on this stuff, and I mean all the Oswald stuff and whether he acted alone or not, and used to love to see interviews, and there was even a book by Vincent Bugliosi, who was a former LADA, like our friend, and but he was big on all of that stuff, and it's going to be fascinating.
It's going to be hopefully revealing to see if there's any documents that people haven't seen before. Greg is curious if the defense had the pictures from the tow truck driver. He was the one who took the pic in the Sally Port and slipped.
Well, he took a picture of the front license plate that I recall based on the video that they played. I don't know if there's any pictures of him taking anything on the back. Again, going in a general description, most tow truck drivers are like valet parkers. What do? They circle the car and they look because you're not blaming me for damage. And what's interesting, and again, I'm speaking generally, I don't know, I'm not talking about this case, but if a tow truck driver saw an entirely busted out taillight, he would want to make damn sure to, I don't want to get blamed for that and make a note of that. Again, I'm not talking about this case or anything, but the only photograph I recall from the video that was played is somebody, there, of course, there you go. We're fact checked here. It was Yuri, who then couldn't identify himself later, right? But that's the front plate he's taken, not the back plate, which would obviously mean can't see the right taillight.
Oh,
on the video that we see. God knows what the missing video shows, right? Who knows? Yes. We'll never know.
That's Olivia Nile. I know you like her a lot. She watches every time you're on. I noticed that she's always here in the chat when you're on.
Maybe one of the smartest people I've ever seen in my life, and analytically gifted.
Good at breaking down things too, like especially in those tweets. The way it's hard to write in tweets, it really is. You got to have a certain style, and she's really good at it, breaking down complex
excellent
stuff.
Writer, excellent analyst, like top level.
Kyle said 31 years with Dallas Fire Department. I saw Stone fixing up Oak Cliff.
All this JFK stuff. It's going to be interesting. I haven't read any of these books in years or thought about it in years, but it's going to be really, really looking forward to seeing that stuff.
Covered a lot of territory. I think for once I was able to read all the super chats that while you were on here. I hope no one's mad at me right now. Did you hear the other night? People got mad, Mark. I can't keep up with them.
I just serve at the pleasure of management. I have nothing to do with it. I don't want to know how you do it.
Disclaimer.
I don't know logistics. I'm just a lawyer. I don't know how any of this stuff works.
You don't know how any of it works. And it's such a problem to have. People are sending you too many super chats. I'm not complaining. I am not complaining. I thank you so much for being here. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else coming up? I mean, you got Aiden Cardi. What's next for him?
So, well, again, without getting into details, because I don't think that's what I want to do. But it was publicly reported that he's on the witness list. We will deal with that. Okay. He is a journalist, and we expect him to have the right to cover the case and do whatever activity that he wants to do. Now, you also saw, again, this is the public record. I'm not sharing anything. Part of the hearing today in Karen's case, there appears to be a concession and admission by the prosecution that they will not be offering in their case in chief any of these so-called allegations of intimidation. Okay? Meaning, why would he be a witness? But I'm going to leave it there for now with respect to that. With respect to the other thing, which I was in New York City today, obviously, so I wasn't there, but I did watch, if that's the right word, more listen, because you just kind of stare at the judge. Actually, I think I watched on your channel, actually. So I think so.
When I finally got it up, yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think it was, but I don't want to get into anything other than to say it was in the public record, but we had an understanding going into today about what any bail request would be and what it would not be. And let's just say it is not what they did. Okay.
Wow. Going back on their word, huh?
I'm stating facts. I'm not stating opinion about whether it violates words. I'm stating a fact. That was not our understanding going in. And if that were to be an issue, it was not something we wanted today for a couple of reasons. Number one, scheduling. Okay. Tim's a busy guy, as you know, and we would have needed more time, and I would have made it a day where I could come. So we're relying on their word that it's not an issue. And then you get there and you find out that they're going to try to seek to incarcerate someone for what videos you've seen publicly as a form of witness intimidation. And that's troubling to me. Didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. The judge obviously didn't do it, but also recognized that, there was an opportunity to be heard on this, and you were heard, and that was handled in the higher court. But, lawyer to lawyer, you want things to be done, as you heard the judge say today, credibility matters as a lawyer. And I'm not sure what happened, and I'm not throwing any bombs. I'm just stating that we didn't expect that and weren't told about that. And, maybe something changed and we'll get an explanation on that. But so I'm not making any accusations or complaints, but that's troubling, because it wouldn't have been today and we were told it wasn't going to happen.
He's in the chat right now. I'm saying he doesn't need any more lectures from people. I get it. Thanks.
Well, maybe some.
I know. Yeah.
Some people
I don't know. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I hope I never lecture. I hope I never lecture Turtle Boy. That's my goal. Never lecture him.
Yeah. Anyway,
he's his own man. Go ahead.
That case, whatever, that'll be dealt with. But the larger issue is the concept of putting a journalist on a witness list, and why. And, they're not calling him as a witness. You know that. I know that. the guy walking down the street here knows that. Okay.
I think I'm the only one who actually thinks they're crazy enough to call him, though. I said that's last night that I'm.
Prosecutors are not in the business of recklessness. Okay, they don't call witnesses just to call them without having a chance to prep them and talk to them, particularly for something like this. This is a real, what lawyers call collateral issue. Okay. Obviously, as it relates to Karen's case, they're trying to, if they're not offering it. Let's be clear. I mean, they said today, we're not going to do this unless you open the door, and that's when they started arguing about, how fraudulent this and that would be. So, and when someone is a journalist and covers a case, there have to be very careful considerations about silencing them. And it is no secret, again, because this is all on the public record as well, that we believe that all these charges against him have been a campaign to silence him from the beginning, because they don't like what he says about them.
Exactly.
Police, the DA.
Yep. Proctor, Tully, Buchanan, the DA. It's obvious.
Case. And we have also said part of the problem is if the DA saw fit to recuse himself, why didn't the state police? I mean, the people investigating him are the people that he criticizes. That should bother people in America. Whatever you think of the conduct or don't, you should be troubled by the chilling effect, the attempt to silence, and the people who are going after him, who are too involved in the very case that he substantially criticizes and alleges is corrupt. If you can't see the problems with that, whatever your opinion of any individual is, that's a problem.
Especially too when the state acknowledges it, because they got a special prosecutor because they felt there was a conflict, but then they sent the same Mass State Police after him that he was criticizing, which is, to me, that's it. That's it. Aiden, we saw Aiden go after Proctor, Tully, Buchanan, Morrissey, and then they come after him. So, I mean, that's it. That's why I don't get why people, especially journalists or even activists out here, whoever, even people on Twitter, everybody should be backing Aiden on this, because you could be next. You could be next.
It's bizarre putting him on the witness list. And it's just the kind of thing that it's so tangential, even if you understand their logic in doing it. It just appears transparent, and it appears to be an attempt to silence. I mean, they don't like what he says, not only because they claim it's intimidation, but they don't like the criticism that gets lobbed on them. So, look, that's what we have to deal with, and we'll deal with it and go from there. And then, we'll see where that leads, and then act accordingly, depending on how it plays out. But I think there was a big development today in the sense that all parties seem to philosophically agree that this should not be admitted at trial. And if that's the case, then there's no reason for him to be anywhere near the witness stand.
Let me ask you one more question. You might not be able to answer it. Cosgrove brought up your name today about the letter to Chief Rafferty, and he seemed very upset about that letter. I thought it was strange. What did you think about that?
By the way, I like him. I like Mr. Cosgrove. I don't agree with him on 99.9% of what he says, but I actually I like him. That's neither here nor there. I mean, I heard what he said about, I think he called it retaliatory. I'm not going to editorialize about his opinion of what the letter is or was. What I would simply say to this is the letter, I assume, is out there. Okay. So presumably you can read it yourself. And if you do read it, it's not being hidden. It's not related to a court case. It was a letter to notify the town police chief of some problems. But you will see that there were two asks in the letter. One of them is to investigate the incident of March 4th about whether there was unlawful wiretapping. That's true. Now, I don't know why that would be considered retaliatory, but it also misses, I think, another critical point if you read the letter. It also asks for a general investigation about how long have these cameras been here, and is anybody walking down the street being audio recorded? This is not about one person. This is about why there is a camera that is perched in the corner. And I think the description given today was, well, it's obvious to anyone. No, it's not. If you're walking down the street in America, in Massachusetts, you're not expected to have your head on a swivel when you're talking to make sure that there are no cameras, lest you have actual knowledge and therefore you can be recorded. Okay. Now, if somebody were talking at that camera, you might make a different argument. But there is a larger issue here. People walking down the street are going to trigger the audio and get captured. And Massachusetts law, whether you like it or not, and there's a lot of things, admittedly, about Massachusetts law that people probably shouldn't like, but the law is you can't, I think, he said there it wasn't secretive. It has to be secretive. That's true. But you have to, peel the onion back from that and define what that means under the statute. And when you break it down, it means this: all the parties to a conversation, whether it be 2, 3, 4, all must have actual knowledge that they're being recorded. That has nothing to do with the Fourth Amendment concept that a lot of Twitter lawyers, they teach this at the Twitter law school, the phrase reasonable expectation of privacy, which does relate to a Fourth Amendment issue, and you have no Fourth Amendment protection when you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about being the victim of an illegal eavesdrop. Nothing to do about suppressing evidence under the Fourth Amendment because you're using it against me, and then the DA is going to argue, well, you had no reasonable expectation of privacy on the sidewalk. That's true. You're going to lose that argument. But they're conflating and don't know what the hell they're talking about. The law is actual knowledge. And if you don't have actual knowledge that you're being audio recorded in Massachusetts, it's illegal, period. Now, you can argue on any given person, well, that person did have actual knowledge because if they were talking to the interior camera, that's an argument. I'm not sure it's a great argument because that's not the camera, if you read the letter, that picked up the sound. That's over there. You're looking here. But again,
the thing
issue,
about
not
that,
just one guy.
Yeah. Because I feel like if I see a business with a camera, I'm assuming they're recording video, but not audio, because it's a business. Like it'd be different if it was a Ring camera. If I saw a Ring camera in a residence, I assume they're doing video and record in audio because that's how most Ring cameras are set up. But a business in Massachusetts, without notification, without some kind of sign that says we're recording audio too, I would never assume that a business with a camera was actually recording audio. So I think that
needs, I agree with you
on this,
but it also logically fails because if that is a security camera for a business, what do you want to do? You want to let people forget the law for a minute. You want to advertise you're on film, you're on sound, because that is a deterrent to people doing things if they think they're on camera. So why wouldn't you, as opposed to perch it in the corner? It's a tiny little thing and there's no notice. But again, the quarrel that people may have with this, you need to go to your legislature, because the law has been the law in this state for however many 50 years, that all parties, and the issue is actual knowledge, not lack of reasonable expectation of privacy. And when you put it in that context, that means anybody who's walking down the busiest street in Canton, basically, right? I mean, I know Canton's not a big town, but that's the main drag.
That's it.
And they're located in downtown. I mean, that's the busy area. Anybody walking down that street, or who has the misfortune of sitting on a bench. I know they have a bench. I've seen other video where I know the benches from other, anybody sitting there who could just be hanging out, your whole conversation could be getting picked up. Now, I don't know if that means, and by the way, I don't know how long those cameras have been there. I don't know if that means there was audio in January 2022 when, people in this case might have walked by there. I don't know if there was audio. If you recall some of the text messages from the Alberts and McCabe's, remember the whole tell them the guy went in the house?
Yes.
And that was to tell the media. And where was the media? If you remember that, they're at
D&E and Pizza.
They're at D&E. Now that's fine, whatever. But did the media walk outside and was anybody listening? I don't know.
That we want answers for now. I mean, so that's very good points.
Bigger than one incident that happened on March 4th. It's a larger question. And the answer can't be, well, everyone does it, so it's okay. Change the law if you don't like it. But and the point of the letter, and if you read it, is asking the Canton police to do this fairly. You can't treat people differently and give them a pass based on their status in the town, based on politics, family relation, or their viewpoint in supporting you on a criminal case. You can't allow policing decisions to be based on content-based decisions. That also would be a violation of the First Amendment. So as far as, as they say, my brother, because that's Massachusetts lawyer talk, right? My brother, saying it's retaliatory. It's his opinion. He's entitled to it. But that doesn't resonate with me in the least bit. Whatever happens with that will happen. But I don't think you can say that was some kind of retaliatory thing because he got arrested that's designed to harass. I mean, it should be troubling to the police that when they get contacted about alleged harassment and they're given all this audio and they put it in their report, they're not hiding it. What they ought to be doing is say, well, why do you have that? Doesn't mean somebody can't be a victim, but what are we doing here? Audio recording everybody outside on the street. So I think that's a fair question for a lawyer to address a matter of public concern, to address that with the chief of police and say, you should be looking into this. That's not retaliatory. That's the people in that town should be concerned about it. And if it's not a crime or they don't do anything about it, then they should know that's the position of the Canton police too. If they want to change the law, that's fine, but it's not a retaliatory thing. It's a real thing. I think it's better for people to know when you walk by there, you're on Canton camera and they're listening to you.
Yeah, especially the listening part. That seems so invasive.
Well, it's only, but let's be clear. It's only the listening part that matters.
Legal.
The law. Yeah. That's the whole point. You're being eavesdropped.
And anyone could, because, so much business is done in that town right there where people coming out of the restaurants. So who knows who he's been listening to? Glamis says, is Chris held to a higher standard as he is an elected official? You would think so.
Again, I'm not going to render an opinion on that, but that was one of the questions in the letter was, We expect you to at least look into this. If you believe you can't because you have a conflict, then we want to be notified and what you intend to do as a result. You know, who you're going to pass it on to. And look, she responded to us and said, you know, we have your letter and we'll be in touch. Whatever. I'm not going to criticize her right now. She responded to a letter and said, we're looking into the issues you raise. So I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to be so jaded, but I think it's important that people realize whatever they do is interesting. And if they sweep it under the rug, the question becomes why? Or does anyone else get charged with this? Does anyone else do? I mean, are they going to make businesses stop doing this? Are they going to take the camera down? Are they going to put up a sign?
Maybe you should just put up a sign. I mean, come on.
Well, I would think anyone who is counsel for a business in Massachusetts that has audio recording any lawyer would be obligated to tell their client what the law is. And the law is actual knowledge. And you better find out a way to make it clear that you're giving everyone who comes by there actual knowledge. And you can't assume because there's a camera perched in the corner when you're walking down the street, you can't assume there's actual knowledge of every single person because they're somehow obligated to look in the corner of every building that they walk by. Okay, it's America in 2025. You don't have to assume you're being surreptitiously recorded everywhere you go.
Edward just noted that Tully is still taking reports. He took the report from Chris Albert, which is, you know, it's wild how the conflicts don't seem to matter even now. After all this time, Tully is still involved in this.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say anything about Tully per se, other than the larger problem is the state police are a target of real critical journalism that is highly, highly critical of them. And they are the agency that primarily is going after the person who is targeting them in that way. And that, again, in America in 2025, that's troubling. There ought to be somebody who doesn't have any skin in the game analyzing and reviewing this.
One last question tonight. No more super chats, please. We're about to wrap it up. Hank's Magic Fact Wand says, if Nan was video recording the boys being silly with her phone without announcing that she is recording, would that not be an issue?
Well, I'm not talking about her specifically, but if somebody has a phone and is doing this,
yeah, you know they're recording. I mean, it's kind of
would seemingly satisfy actual knowledge. The difference here is you're talking about a camera way up off to the side, and there are some people who might see it. That's true. But people walking down the street may very well not see it. People looking in the glass window at the front of the location may not see it. But if somebody is literally walking around in your face with a camera and audio recording, well, then, yeah, you have actual knowledge. Now, the difference is, what if they're, hiding behind a tree and, well, yeah, now you're being eavesdropped. I mean, it's a fact-specific analysis.
Definitely. And there have been cases in Massachusetts where police tried to do that to like protesters or people that were filming them, filming the actual police. And the protesters or people recording the police won. They had charges dismissed because once you're holding a camera up, people know what you're doing.
Oh, I thought you were about the cops surreptitiously recording. They've had evidence thrown out by the cops. But yes, if you're at a protest and doing this, that's actual knowledge. That's the standard. But when you see all these people talking about reasonable expectation of privacy, they're conflating the issue. That relates to the Fourth Amendment and your constitutional right in terms of whether your rights have been violated in a criminal prosecution and they want to use evidence against you. The reasonable expectation of privacy has literally nothing to do with the Massachusetts wiretapping law. It's actual knowledge. Big difference.
Excellent. I want to thank you so much for being here, Attorney Mark Bederow. Anything else that you want to leave us with? Any thoughts? How are the Celtics doing tonight?
They're losing, but again, it's not. This is what we call a scheduled loss. They just don't care. It's a meaningless game. They'll be ready. They're gonna certainly be one of, I would say, realistically 4 or 5 teams has a chance of winning. So the whole thing, I mean, of course. So will
you be at the playoffs? Gonna go to some games, maybe?
Yeah, I expect so. Yeah, I would believe so. Yeah, depending on how long they go. I need them to do what they did last year and push it out.
Good. I hope good luck on that. I hope they have a good run, and you enjoy the playoffs this year for the Celtics.
Yeah,
Let's
definitely.
see some more green. Yeah, let's see some more trophies.
All we have. There will not be any other playoffs in any other team in this town for at least.
That's it. That's our only chance.
Yeah, it's all or nothing. It's green or bust for sure.
Awesome. I want to thank you for being here tonight again. We'll be watching you in court, and thank you so much for being back. Everyone's excited that you're back. It's so good to have you on here.
Hey, listen, I didn't ask for it. It wasn't my choice. It is what it is. You just have to recognize that there are certain topics and things that just can't be discussed. But whatever's public is public, and that's certainly available.
I think everyone gets that at this point. I didn't see people. No one got upset when their question didn't get answered. They just they like to ask. They like to see what you can answer. So we appreciate that you try.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much, Attorney Mark Bederow. Have a great rest of your week, brother. Thank you.
All right. Be well. Bye.
You too. Thanks, Mark. That was Mark Bederow. Always a good time with him. I want to thank the Massachusetts Auditor Diana DiZoglio for being here earlier, and Attorney Mark Bederow for spending the rest of the show with us. That was amazing. One of the super chats I didn't get up earlier from JB with the auditor was on. They said it's refreshing to see a mass politician stand up to the corrupt hacks in the state. It makes me irate. They continue to be above the law and not do what people voted for. Thanks for fighting for us. Thank you so much, JB, for that donation tonight. I want to thank everyone who's been watching tonight. And I think for once I got all the super chats up tonight. Hopefully no one's mad. I know you guys get a little upset sometimes. It's not intentional. It's not personal. Don't take it personal. It's just sometimes we get overwhelmed over here. Especially when Bederow's on. The other night was insane. It was fun. One of the best nights in a long time. I want to thank Mazza Media for being here the other night too. And thank, of course, Attorney Mark Bederow. I want to thank all of our moderators in the chat tonight. Thank you so much, MJ, Stephanie, Sarah, and Shock and Hura, Jen O. Also want to thank Scott McGinnis. I saw Scott there tonight too. And thank you, Turtle Boy. I saw him in the chat tonight posting. Thank you so much, everybody who's been watching, supporting us. I'm not sure. I think I'm taking tomorrow night off. We'll see. We'll see. I might have an inkling to play some of the video from the hearing. I might decide to do it tomorrow night, but I think I'm going to try to take tomorrow night off. Thursday night, gonna be on LTL. We're gonna all be on LTL. Myself, Mazza Media, and Nan Gallagher, Attorney Nan Gallagher. Thursday night, 7 p.m. over at LTL Media. Looking forward to doing that Thursday night. And Turtle Boy's on tonight too, right? Right about now. So we're gonna close it down. I'm gonna go walk my dog Fergus. Actually, I gotta walk my dog first. He's here, Charlie. Then I gotta go walk Fergus, and then I'll be watching Turtle Boy while I'm walking the dogs too. Hopefully, see you over there in the chat. Have a great night, everyone. You know what? Before I go, I'm gonna check. I just gotta check the Venmos. I didn't see any come up, but if they did, I don't want to. I want to have a perfect show. I didn't do any mutes tonight. I didn't miss any Venmos. I didn't miss any Cash Apps. I haven't missed any super chats, hopefully. See, I did. I got a couple donations today. Debbie sent money earlier today while we were streaming the court. She sent $25. DEBI is how she smells Debbie. Debbie M. Thank you so much for the $25 today, Debbie. I really appreciate that. Also, John M. Sent $11 and he said, thanks for the stickers. Oh, I'm so glad you got your stickers, John. And I'm sure we're going to do more. People have been asking, how can we get some stickers? They missed the stickers. I think we're going to do some more fundraising for Karen Reed and Turtle Boy, Aiden Carney, probably next week. So you'll have more opportunities to win those or receive those stickers. It's not a contest. Just if you make a donation, you get me mailing you some nice stickers. So thank you so much. That's those donations came in on the Cash App today, actually. I'm gonna check Venmo real quick. And it looks like okay, I did not get any Venmos, which just makes it easier. So a couple donations on the Cash App. Really appreciate that. I appreciate all of the super chats again tonight. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin's Waterfall, Hank's Magic, back Wand. Thank you, Edward and Kyle. Thank you so much. And Greg. I want to thank Sea Dog as well. Not today. Miss Holmes, she made several super chats tonight. Thank you so much. Siobhan Man, also a regular. Edward, again, thank you so much. And Bay State, thank you. And A had a lot of good questions tonight too. Camera Obscura, thank you so much. And Kaliko 26. And Tiff, thank you so much tonight. Amor or Love of Alessi, thank you so much. You guys are so generous with me. Ashley and Eric, thank you. ER, thank you. Thank you so much, ER. And much appreciation from Z. Looks like we're getting some euros. I like that comment. Garrett Wing trains police dogs. Crosby just observes. Thank you, Gray Space, and Mr. Meat Hook. I love that name, Mr. Meat Hook. And a man called Clay. Thank you, Tristan Morris. Thank you. And Limeen. I always have a trouble with that word. And Limeen Pickets. Thank you. Well, in Lemonade Pickets. Romy. Thank you. Gray Space again. Thank you. Oh, and Couch Jura. That's another good screen handle. I like that one. And of course, our moderator, Stephanie, she's the best. Thank you so much, Stephanie. She designed some of our stickers. She is such a good moderator, good friend of the show. A mom. We love Stephanie. JB, thank you. Talk time with Amy. Boston, thank you. And also retired teachers. I love my teachers. Teachers are the best people around. Thank you so much, retired teacher. Whew, I think I got them all done. Now I'm gonna go walk some dogs and watch Turtle Boy, and maybe see you next, hopefully on Thursday night. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you again, Attorney Mark Bederow. Check him out, Bederow Law. If you're not following him on Twitter and X, make sure you're doing so. Consider making a donation to the Turtle Boy Defense Fund, as well as the Karen Reed Defense Fund. If you get a chance, an opportunity, definitely donate to those funds if you want to support. Thank you so much. Again, Mass State Auditor Diana DiZoglio, who was here earlier tonight as well. You can definitely support her. We posted her X and Twitter in the chat earlier tonight. I hope you guys follow her. And if you want to take the next step to help her audit the legislature, you can do so. Hit up the Mass Attorney General and let her know that she needs to offer some legal support for the auditor, because the state legislator, the state house, is blocking an audit that the people voted on, and the AG isn't doing anything about it. So if you want to help out, hit up your state reps, your state senator, and especially hit up the attorney general. Great. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you on Thursday night. and we'll see you in Turtle Boy Shop.